Section 1 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sue Anderson. The Diary of Master Thomas Dallam, 1599-1600. In this book is the account of an organ carried to the Grand Signieur and other curious matters. 1599. Necessaries for my voyage into Turkey, the which I bought upon very short warning, having no friend to advise me in anything. Imprimus, for 1 suit of sackcloth to wear at sea, £1, 2s. Item for another suit of kersey, £1, 18s. Item for 2 waistcoats of flannel, 8s. Item for a hat, 7s. 6d. Item for an arming sword, 6s. Item for a chest, 9s. 8d. Item for 3 shirts, 18s. 6d. Item for 1 dozen of bands, 12s. 8d. Item for half a dozen of bands, 10s. Item for 1 band, 2s. 6d. Item for 6 shirts more, £1, 14s. Item for 1 dozen of handkerchiefs, 10s. Item for 1 pair of garters, 4s. Item for 1 dozen of points, laces for fastening clothes, 1s. Item for another dozen, 2s. Item for 2 pair of stockings, 12s. Item for 1 pair of linen breeches, 1s. 4d. Item for 1 pair of pumps and pantofles, 3s. 6d. Item for 3 pair of shoes, 7s. Item for a girdle and hangers, that part of the sword belt to which the weapon was suspended, 2s. 8d. Item for a gown, £1, 10s. Item for a pair of virginals, spinets, £1, 15s. Item for a pair of fustian breeches, 2s. 6d. Item for a hat band, 4s. 2d. Item for another hat band, 1s. For a cellar and glasses, 11s. 6d. Item for rosa solis, a cordial, and a compost, a mixture, 6s. Item for oil and vinegar, 2s. Item for prunes, 1s. 3d. Item for raisins of the sun, sun-dried raisins, 1s. 4d. Item for cloves, mace, and pepper, 1s. 6d. Item for 2 pounds of sugar, 3s. Item for nutmegs, 1s. Item for gloves, 3s. Item for knives, 5s. Item for 30 pounds of tin in bars, 18s. Item for a gross of spoons, 9s. Item for oatmeal, 10d. Item for carrying my chest to Blackwall, 1s. 6d. Item for my passage to Gravesend, 6d. Item for my staying there 4 days, it cost me 12s. Item at Deal Castle, 1s. Item at Dartmouth, 4s. At Plymouth, staying there 7 days, it cost me 15s. At Algiers, in Barbary, 4s. At Zante, in Graecia, no price. At Scanderoon, in Asia Minor, no price. From the Land's End of England to the strait's mouth is 400 leagues. Betwixt the strait's mouth and Algiers in Barbary is 150 leagues. From Algiers to Sicily is 200 leagues. From Sicily to Zante is 90 leagues. From Zante to Scanderoon is 250 leagues. 400 plus 150 plus 200 plus 90 plus 250 equals 1,090 leagues. From the royal city of London towards the Straits of Mare Mediterraneum, and what happened on the way. The ship wherein I was to make my voyage to Constantinople, lying at Gravesend, I departed from London in a pair of oars, with my chest and such provision as I had provided for that purpose, the 9th of February 1599 being Friday. Coming to Gravesend, I went aboard our ship, called the Hector, and there placed my chest, my bedding, and a pair of virginals, which the merchants did allow me to carry for my exercise by the way. Other commodities I carried none, saving one gross of tin spoons, which cost me 9 shillings, and 30 pound of tin in bars, which cost me 18 shillings. The ship being very unready, and no cabins appointed for passengers, I was constrained to go into the town for my lodging and diet till the 13th day in the afternoon, at which time anchor was weighed and we under sail, until we came to Deal Castle. Coming to Deal Castle, there we came to an anchor, for the wind served not to pass by Dover. There our ship stayed 4 days for a wind. In the meantime we went ashore into the town of Deal, and also to Sandwich, to make ourselves merry. When the wind came fairer, it was in the night, and divers of us that were passengers, and also some sailors, were in the town of Deal, where some of our company had drank very much, especially one of our 5 trumpeters, who, being in drink, had locked his chamber door. And when he that came from the ship to call us went under his chamber window and called him, he came to the window and insulted him, whereupon we went all away aboard our ship and left that drunkard behind. There, the wind serving well, we sailed merrily by Dover, and so along the Sleeve, the Celtic Sea. But being about 30 leagues at sea, suddenly there came a contrary wind, the which did prove a marvellous great storm for the space of 48 hours. In the night we did not only lose our pinnace called the Lanneret, the Hawk, who was to go with us to the Gulf of Venice, but we also lost ourselves, not knowing where we were by reason the fog was so great that we could see no sun. When it began anything to clear, we found ourselves to be hard upon the Pony Stones between England and Ireland, probably the dangerous Pommier rocks in the Casquettes, a very dangerous place. Then our mariners did labor to get us into the main ocean again, but the storm not altogether ceasing, but the fog more increasing, we were the next day at a nonplus again, not knowing where we were, but being under sail and the fog very thick. Upon a sudden we saw the sea break against the shore, the which was very great rocks, and we were so near the shore that it was not possible to cast about in time to save ourselves from shipwreck. But it pleased Almighty God so to defend us from harm that we were just before the harbor at Dartmouth, a very straight entry betwixt great rocks that are on both sides of that entry. Then were we all very joyful, and entered in there very willingly. There we stayed 4 days. In the meantime the master, the captain, and merchants sent posts about to all the haven towns upon that coast to inquire of our pinnace the Lanaret. In the end word was brought that presently after the storm 3 or 4 sail of Dunkirkers, who were at that time the pirates of the Channel, had her in chase, and in the storm her topmast was broken, so that to save herself from being taken she ran ashore at Falmouth. Having there gotten a new topmast, she sent word by the messenger that she would meet us in Plymouth Sound. This word being brought, anchor was weighed and we under sail. When we came right before Plymouth a piece was discharged to call our pinnace, but even at that time the wind came contrary, so that we must needs also go in there, and came to an anchor in that water, where we found our pinnace. There we stayed 7 days for a wind. End of section 1. Section 2 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. The 16th day of March, being very cold weather, the wind came fair, and as we were under sail in Plymouth Sound, there came in a little caravel with salt, who no sooner was come to the shore, and hearing the name of our ship, but they caused a parley to be sounded by a trumpet, whereupon sail was struck, and 2 sailors of that caravel came aboard our ship, advising our master not to go to sea without good store of company, for they went to sea in a man of war from Plymouth called the Plough, and they were taken by 7 sail of Dunkirkers, who did straitly examine them if they could tell where the Hector was, or whether she were gone her voyage or no. But they protested that they never heard of such a ship. Some of these men they put to death to fear others. What they did with the rest of their men they knew not. They took their ship from them, and gave 6 of them that little caravel to bring them home. When our master and captain had heard these men speak, he told them that he would not stay 1 hour for any more company than God already had sent him, the which was only our pinnace and 2 ships that were going for Newfoundland, and for their own safety had made haste after us. Sailing forth before a fair wind, our ship sailed so well that we could spare the pinnace our mainsail, and yet the next morning our pinnace was very far behind. About 8 of the clock one of our main top descried 3 sail, the which did lie close by our foreport. A little after he saw 4 more, which lay the same course, and these were the 7 sail which we were told of. Then we began to look about us. Our gunners made ready their ordnance, our fights out, and every man his bandolier and musket. Fights were waist cloths formerly hung about a ship to conceal the men from the enemy. We had the wind of them, and needed not to have spoken with them, but our captain thought it not fit to show ourselves fearful or cowardly, lest the wind should suddenly turn or scant upon us, and our flying would encourage our enemies to come the more boldly upon us. Then he called the boatswain, and bid him bear towards them, the which he willingly went about. So we bore towards them, and when we came so near them that we might well discern the hulk of their admiral and of their vice admiral, and they came boldly upon us, our master bid the boatswain show them a broadside, for our mainsail was so broad that they could not see the stoutness of our ship, for mayhap, quoth he, they may take our ship to be one of the queens, and if we do happen to heal them, or they us, they which make answer may say our ship is called the Seven Stars, for the queen as yet hath none of that name. But as soon as they saw the broadside of our ship, thinking us indeed to be one of the queen's ships, they presently turned them about to fly away. Then we gave chase to them, having almost lost sight of our pinnace and all other ships saving those which we gave chase unto. They made all the sail they could, and yet within half an hour we were come within shot of them. Then our captain bid the master gunner give them a chase piece shot at the admiral, but hit him not. Chase guns were placed during an engagement at the chase ports of the bows. So the master gunner gave him a shot close by his forebow, yet would they neither strike sail nor show any flag, but made away with all the sail they had, drablings and topgallants, but all would not serve their turn, for we came nearer and nearer unto them. Then our master bid the gunner shoot through the admiral his mainsail, and so he did, very near her drabling. Drablings were pieces of canvas laced on the bonnet of a sail to give it more drop. Then the admiral, vice admiral, rear admiral, and one more shot the maintop, but at that time they had the wind side of us, though we were near come unto them, yet no man would show himself. Then the boatswain of our ship stood upon our spar deck with his sword drawn in his hand, commanding them to come under our lee side, the which very unwillingly they did, yet no man would show himself. Now we, being very near the coast of Spain, he tacked about again to go his right course, and all this 7 sail did follow us. Then our master called unto the admiral himself, commanding them to cast out the boat and come aboard us, or else he would sink them. After so calling twice unto them, one that seemed by his speech to be a Dutchman answered, "Ve will, ve will," but long it was before the boat came forth. Yet at last their boat came forth, and the captain of that ship, with 4 sailors to row the boat, went aboard the vice admiral, and there stayed half an hour. Then those 3 captains came aboard our ship. Now all this while we were sailing our course, and all these 7 ships durst do no other but follow us. When these 3 captains came aboard us, one of our company saw one of them have under his arm a good long money bag full of something, and so they went with the master of our ship into his cabin and talked a good while. In the meantime the sailors which brought these captains aboard, standing on our hatches, and our sailors looking upon them, one of our men said, "Surely I should know this fellow, for he is an Englishman." That man presently answered, swearing a great oath, and saying that he was no Englishman, neither could speak one word of English, and yet he spoke as good English as any of us. Then one of our master's mates, our purser and boatswain, took their boat and 4 of our own sailors and went aboard 3 or 4 of those ships, and in that meantime our master and the 3 captains, having well talked of the matter, our master came forth of his cabin and strode upon the spar deck, causing all our company to be called before him, did read a letter which seemed to be but newly written. The effect of that letter was as if it had been made as a pass from the King of France, with certain wines which the captain said were aboard their ships. But while he was a reading that letter, our master's mate, purser, and boatswain came from the ships and said they were men of war, laden with nothing but men, soldiers, muskets, rapiers and daggers, shields and bucklers, and meant nothing so much as to have taken us. But our master, having already taken the prize in his cabin, seemed to be very angry with his mate and the purser for saying so, he having a letter to show the contrary. So he discharged the captain and let the ships go, the which grieved the sailors and the rest of our company very much. If he had done as he might very well have done, brought those 7 sail as a prize into England, it would have been the bravest service that ever any English merchant ship did, and thereby have reaped great credit as any ever did. The following paragraph was written in the original on the opposite blank page. At our coming home out of Turkey, it was well known that those 7 sail, after they escaped from us, and before our coming home, they had taken and robbed upon the sea, betwixt London and Newcastle, 80 sail of English and other country ships. End of section 2. Section 3 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. March 1599. The 20th day, the wind serving well, we passed the North Cape, and entered the Bay of Portugal. The 23rd we recovered the South Cape. Then we were becalmed for a time. The 24th there came an infinite company of porpoises about our ship, the which did leap and run marvelously. The 25th we saw 2 or 3 great monstrous fishes or whales, the which did spout water up into the air like as smoke doth ascend out of a chimney. Sometime we might see a great part of their body above the water. The calm did yet continue. The 27th, having a very fair wind, the which did blow a good gale about 12 or 1 of the clock, we entered the Straits of Mare Mediterraneum, in despite of our enemies. At the entry it is but 3 leagues at the most from shore to shore. In my thinking it seemed not to be above 3 miles, but the reason of it is because the land is very high on both sides, Spain on our left hand and Barbary of the right. On Spain's side we did see a very fair town or city called Tarifa, the which stood very pleasantly close to the sea. On Barbary side there is a mighty mountain of rocks, the which they do call Ape Hill. 7 leagues further, on Spain side, there is a very strong town called Gibraltar. This town lay very fair to our view. It is very well fortified and of great strength. There doth also lie a great number of the King of Spain's galleys and men of war to keep the straits. On the east side of the town there is a great mountain, whereon a great part of the town doth stand. This mountain is very upright on both sides, but on the east side it is so upright that no man can go to the top of it. It stands crosswise to the sea. On the fore end there is a strong bulwark, by which means the town is more secure. We set out from Plymouth the 16th of March, having then very cold weather, and no sign of any green thing on trees or hedges. And the 27th, at the entering of the Straits, the weather was exceedingly hot, and we might see the fields on both sides very green, and the trees full blown, the which unto me was a very great wonder to find such an alteration in 11 days. Right over against Gibraltar, on Barbary side, there is a town very fair to our view, called Ceuta. This town is walled about, and the fields about it very pleasant and of good soil. Though on both sides of sea there is huge mountains and ragged rocks, on the east side of this town a little there is a large and strong bulwark or fort, and the like is on the west side. The King of Spain doth also hold that town, being in Barbary. A little further on the coast of Spain there is a town called Marbella, but I could not well discern it for the fog which at that time lay upon the sea. The next town is called Grand Malaga, and then Salobrena, which town is 40 leagues east of Gibraltar. The 28th of March we sailed still a long by the shore of Spain, where we might see upon huge mountains great store snow that doth lie there continually, and yet in the valleys below it is very hot. The 29th day we sailed by the shore of Africa. The 30th day we entered into a harbor in Barbary called Algiers. When we were upon the sea before the town, it made a very fair show. It lieth close to the sea, upon a very upright hill. The town in proportion is like a topsail. It is very strongly walled about, with 2 walls and a ditch. The greatest part of the town, or houses in the town, have flat roofs, covered artificially with plaster of Paris. A man being on top of one house may go over the greatest part of the town. Divers of the streets are very narrow, and uneasy going in them, for the town stands upon rocks. Above the town, upon the top of the hill, there is a castle, the which may command the road or a part of the sea before the town. Almost a mile from that castle into the country wards there is another castle, the which is guarded or kept by a certain number of soldiers. But as far as I could learn, it is but only to keep the head of their springs of water, which come to their fountains in the town, for the Turks drink nothing but water, and they say that horse and man may go under or in the earth from that castle to the town. I and 3 or 4 more went yet a mile further into the country, where we saw another castle, the which, as we did think, was made for the same use. We went so far into the country at the request of Mr. Chancey, who was our physician and surgeon for the sea. He went to gather some herbs and roots. This day being the last day of March, it was a wonder to us to see how forward the spring was. Trees and hedges were full blown, corn, wheat, and barley shoot, young oranges and apples upon the trees. And coming again into the town, we met Moors and other people driving asses laden with green beans to be sold in the market. As they went along the street they often would call to the people and say, balak, balak, that is to say, beware or take heed. We saw divers Moors come in riding, all naked, saving a little cloth before them like a child's apron. Some of them did carry a dart, others a bow and arrows. There be also a great number of Jews, but the greatest number be Turks. The town or city is very full of people, for it is a place of great trade and merchandise. They have 2 market days in the week, unto the which do come a great number of people out of the mountains and other parts of the country, bringing in great store of corn and fruit of all sorts, and fowl both wild and tame. There be great store of partridges and quails, the which be sold very cheap, a partridge for less than 1 penny, and 3 quails at the same price. There be also great store of hens and chickens, for they be hatched by artificial means in stoves or hothouses, without the help of a hen. The manner of it I cannot at this time plainly describe, but hereafter I may, if God permit. They have also great store of camels, asses, asnegos (Portuguese for ass), oxen, horses, and some dromedaries. There be a great number of Turks that be but reneyed Christians of all nations. Some, but most are Spaniards, Italians, and other lands adjoining, who when they be taken are compelled so to do, or else to live in much more slavery and misery. But in process of time these reneyed Christians do become most barbarous and villainous, taking pleasure in all sinful actions. But that which is worst of all they take most delight in, and that is, they prowl about the coasts of other countries with all the skill and policy they can to betray Christians, which they sell unto the Moors and other merchants of Barbary for slaves. There are in this town great store of hothouses or baths, the which they call banos, and also cooks' houses that dress meat very well. The next day after we came into the road, the king sent word to our captain that he should come unto him and bring with him the present which he had to carry unto the Grand Signior. So our captain went unto him and told the king that the present which he carried to the Grand Signior was not only a thing of great substance and charge, but also it was difficult curio, and would ask a long time to put it together and make it fit to be seen. When the king understood what our captain had said, he would give no credit unto his words, but kept him as a prisoner, and caused me and my mate to be sent for. When we came before him and were examined, he found us to be in the same tale that our captain had told. And then was our captain released and we discharged, and the king sent our captain for a present aboard our ship 2 bulls and 3 sheep, the which were very lean, for they do think the worst things they have is too good for Christians. They are all in general very covetous, and use all the policy they can to get from the Christians, lawfully or unlawfully, as much as they may. The Turkish and Moorish women do go always in the streets with their faces covered, and the common report goeth there that they believe or think that the women have no souls, and I do think that it were well for them if they had none, for they never go to church or other prayers as the men doeth. The men are very religious in their kind, and they have very fair churches, which they do call mosques. Section 4 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. Of the further procession of our navigation. We departed from the city of Algiers the 4th of April, sailing still near the coast or shore of Africa. 20 leagues from Algiers there is a fair town called Delis, but we sailed afar off from it. We also passed by a little town called Bougie, under a huge mountain, rising high and peaked like a sugar loaf. Some of our navigators said that at this place St. Augustine did sometime keep a school or exercise. It is 30 leagues from Algiers towards the east on the same side. The 7th of April, being Easter Eve, we saw very strange lightning in the sky or in the air. It was very wonderful and strange, for we might see the air open and a fire like a very hot iron taken out of a smith's forge, sometimes in likeness of a running worm, another time like a horseshoe, and again like a leg and a foot. Also the thunderclaps were also exceeding great. The 7th day we passed by a place called Moratom, the 18th by a huge mountain, which is an island in the sea close by the shore. This island is called Zembre el Jamour. Upon that shore over against it is sometime the city of Cartag, but some writers call it Carthage. About 5 leagues further we saw the cape or fort called Cape Bon. At the west side of it there is a great and large town called Tunis, by some people Thunis. There doth lie some part of the Turk's galleys. The 14th we sailed by a famous island called Sicily, close by the shore of it. This island, they say, is 80 leagues in length, a very fruitful and pleasant island. It doth yield great store of corn and all manner of fruit. At the west end there doth always lie at least 9 galleys, and at the west end 10 or more. Near unto the east end of this Sicily there is a very high mountain, the which they do call Montabel, but the right name of it is Mount Etna. In the daytime we that sail by it may see the top of it covered with snow, but in the night we did see many flashes of fire, to our thinking about the middle of the mountain. This brave island is under the King of Spain. We did leave it upon our left hand. Then upon our right hand we saw another island, which is called Malta, and that is likewise under the King of Spain, and is now kept for the quantity the Master of the Roads, Grand Master of the Knights of Rhodes, so that the Turks can hardly pass that way. A little before we came so far as Malta, we gave chase to a ship, being the 15th day. After the master of that ship perceived by our flag what we were, and did see that 3 such as himself was not able to contend with us, he cast out his boat and came aboard us, and brought with him for a present diverse commodities, some Turkey carpets, some quilted coverings of watchet woad dyed silk, and 2 or 3 great pieces of salt fish that were 7 or 8 feet long and 1 foot square. It was strange fish unto us. We never tasted it, for after he that brought it had talked privately with our master, he gave him leave to depart and to take all his presents with him, but it much grieved our sailors, for some officers of our ship went aboard that ship while he was talking with our master, and they found by the purser's book that they had $10,000 worth of Spanish goods aboard. But our master, having received some secret bribe, he said that the ship and goods came from Cayos, where Mr. William Aldrich was consul, and other idle reasons, and therefore he would not take anything from him. And so the ship went away. Then we passed by Malta. The 17th day we gave chase to another ship of Marseilles, and boarded her, but had little or nothing from her. Then we crossed the Gulf of Venice. The 19th we descried land in Grecia. The 20th day we passed by Sovrano, leaving it on our left hand. At this port of Sovrano there be 2 towns and a most singular good harbor. Near unto it is the island called Sante, but rather Zante. The same day we came to an anchor before the great town of that island, the which they do call Zante by the name of the island. There is also a good harbor. The town or city of Zante is situated close to the sea, and is a good mile in length. Behind it, upon a very high and steep hill, doth stand a large platform of a castle, wherein doth live the governor of that castle and town. He is called the Provedor. Within the walls of this castle is diverse other dwellers and many houses. Within that place the Provedor doth 2 days in the week hold a court, and hear diverse causes, as well of the Greeks as of the Venetian and Italians. For this island is under the Duke of Venice, but he holds it under the Grand Turk, and doth pay tribute yearly or quarterly for it. The greatest part of the people in this island be Greeks, and they do labor hard in planting and trimming the currant gardens, olive gardens, and vineyards. Here groweth very little corn, but from hence cometh the most of our currants and best oil. There is also good wine. Their provision of bread, beef, goats, sheep, and swine, and pullen fowls, they have it from Castle Tornese in Moria, the which place is near the plains of Arcadia, where plenty of cattle are. The Provedor and those which are next unto him in office, whom they do call Signors of Health, would not suffer us to come on shore, because we came from Algiers, where Turks do live, and we brought from thence some Turks in our ship. Yet at the end of 6 days we had pratique, which is leave to come ashore. The order there is that all those which do come out of any part of Turkey, having not a letter of health from some Venetian or Italian, must remain either aboard the ship or in the prison, which they do call the lazarette, for 10 days. If in the meantime any man happen to be sick, they must all rest there for 10 days more, and so still for 10 days, until they have their health. Whilst we lay thus for 6 days upon the sea before the town, I took great notice of a little mountain, the which, as I thought, did lie close to the sea, and seemed to be a very pleasant place to take a view of the whole island and the sea before it. It showed to be very green, and plain ground on the top of it, and a white thing like a rock in the middle thereof. I took such pleasure in beholding this hill that I made a kind of vow or promise to myself that as soon as I set foot on shore I would neither eat nor drink until I had been on the top thereof, and in the meantime did labor with 2 of my companions, and persuaded them to bear me company. One of their names was Michael Watson, my joiner, and the other's name Edward Hall, a Scotchman. The day being come that we should go ashore, I challenged my associates with their promise, and got their good wills to go with me before we went into the town. This hill is called by the Greeks Scopo, outlook. It is from the town more than a mile, but I gave our sailors something to carry us in the cock-boat, as we thought, to the foot of the hill, but when we were set ashore we found it to be almost 2 miles unto it. When we came to the foot of it, by great fortune we happened on the right way, the which was very narrow and crooked. It was early in the morning, and we were told 2 or 3 days before that no man must carry any weapon with him when he went ashore, and therefore we went only with cudgels in our hands. So, ascending the hill about half a mile, and looking up, we saw upon a story of the hill above us a man going with a great staff on his shoulder, having a clubbed end, and on his head a cap which seemed to us to have 5 horns standing outright, and a great herd of goats and sheep followed him. My friend Michael Watson, when he saw this, he seemed to be very fearful, and would have persuaded us to go no further, telling us that surely those that did inhabit there were savage men, and might easily wrong us, we having no swords or daggers, neither any more company. But I told him that if there were divers, I would, with God's help, be as good as my word. So, with much ado, we got him to go to that story where we saw the man with his club, and then we saw that that man was a herdsman. Yet for all this Michael Watson swore that he would go no further, come of it what would. Edward Hall said something faintly that he would not leave me, but see the end. So we two traveled forward, and when we came something near the top, we saw 2 horses grazing, with pack saddles on their backs, and one man coming down the hill towards us, having nothing in his hands. Quoth I to my fellow, Ned, we shall see by this man what people they be that inhabit here. When this man came unto us, he lay his hand upon his breast, and bowed his head and body with smiling countenance, making us a sign to go up still. Yet then Ned Hall began to dissuade me from going any further, but I told him it would not stand with my oath to go back until I had been as far as I could go. Coming to the top, there was a pretty fair green, and on one side of it a white house built of lime and some square, the which had been the house of an anchoress, who, as I heard afterwards, died but a little before our coming thither, and that she had lived 500 years. Right before us, on the further side of the green, I saw a house of some 20 paces long, and walled about 1 yard high, and then open to the eaves, which was about 1 yard more. And I see a man on the inside reach out a copper kettle to one that stood without the wall. Then I said to Ned Hall, I will go to yonder house and get some drink, for I have great need. The weather was very hot, and I was fasting. But Ned Hall told me I had no reason to drink at their hands, neither to go any nearer them. Yet I went boldly to the side of the house, where I saw another man drink, and made a sign to him within that I would drink. Then he took up the same kettle which had water in it, and offered it me to drink. And when I did put out my hand to take it, he would not give it me, but set it further off, and then came near the wall again, and lifted up a carpet which lay on the ground, and there was 6 bottles full of very good wine, and a fair silver cup, and he filled that silver bowl full of a reddish wine, which they do call Rabola, and he gave it me to drink. And when I had it in my hand, I called to my friend Ned Hall, who stood afar off, for he was afraid to come near. "Here, Ned," quoth I, "a carouse to all our friends in England." "I pray you," quoth he, "take heed what you do. Will you take what drink they give you?" "Yea, truly," quoth I, "for it is better than I have as yet deserved of." When I had give God thanks for it, I drank it off, and it was the best that ever I drank. Then he filled me the same bowl with white Rabola, the which was more pleasant than the other. When I had much commended the wine, and told Ned Hall that he was a fool to refuse such a cup of wine, then he came near the house and desired to have some water, so he had the kettle to drink in. When this was all done, I was so well pleased with this entertainment that I knew not how to thank this man. I had no money about me but $1/2 of Spanish money, and that money is best accepted of in that country. I offered to give that piece of silver to this man, but he would not by any means take it. Then I remembered that I had 2 Seville knives in my pocket. I took one of them and gave it him, and the blade gilded and graven. When he had taken it out of the sheath and looked upon it, he called in a loud voice, "Sisto, Sisto!" Then another man came running, unto whom he showed but only the half of it, and then they began to wrastle for the knife. But he that I gave it unto kept it, and leap over the wall to the side where I was, and bowing himself unto me, he took me by the hand and led me about by the end of that house, and so into a little cloister, through the which we passed into a chapel, where we found a priest at mass and wax candles burning. He put me into a pew, where I sat and saw the behavior of the people, for there were about 20 men, but not a woman amongst them, for the women were in a lower chapel by themselves, yet might they hear and see. Ned Hall came after, but having lost sight of me, at his coming into the chapel he kneeled down near unto the women, but saw them not, but they saw him and wondered at his behavior, for after I had kneeled down I stood up in my pew to look for him, and then I saw 2 women put out their heads and laughed at him, as indeed they might, for he behaved himself very foolishly. Neither he nor I had ever seen any part of a mass before, neither were we the wiser for that. The chapel was very curiously painted and garnished round about, as before that time I had never seen the like. Service being ended, we departed out of the chapel, but presently one came after us, who did seem very kindly to entreat me to go back again, and he led us through the chapel into the cloister, where we found standing 8 very fair women and richly apparelled, some in red satin, some white, and some in watchet damask, their heads very finely attired, chains of pearl and jewels in their ears, 7 of them very young women, the 8th was ancient and all in black. I thought they had been nuns, but presently after I knew they were not. Then were we brought into that house where before I had drank. Cloth being laid, we were requested to sit down, and served with good bread and very good wine, and eggs, the shells of them colored like a damask rose, Easter eggs, and these made like an a la campagna, country style roux, for they keep it in the earth, because nothing in there takes salt. My fellow Ned Hall would neither eat nor drink anything but water, yet I did eat 1 egg, bread and cheese, and I drank 2 bowls of wine. Whilst we sat there, the gentlewomen came in, and 3 of them came very near us and looked earnestly upon us. I offered one of them the cup to drink, but she would not. Then I offered to give them that tended upon us my half-dollar, but he would not take any money. These women standing all together before us, I thought they had been dwellers there, because no money would be taken. I presented my other knife, of 2 shillings price, unto the old gentlewoman, the which she was unwilling to take, but at last she took it, and then they all flocked together, and as it seemed to me, they wondered much at it. When they had well looked upon it, they came all together towards me and bowed their bodies to show their thankfulness. So Ned Hall and I took our leaves and went away very merrily. But when we came to the place where we left our faint-hearted friend Michael Watson, who all this while had lain in a bush, when we had told him the wonders that we had seen and of our kind entertainment, he would not believe us, for he was ashamed, and desired us to make haste to the town, that he might get some victuals. But we made the less haste for that, and went to see another monastery. Near unto the place upon this mountain growed many sweet flowers instead of heath, thyme and other good herbs, and fine springs of water. Coming to the town of Zante, we inquired out the house where our merchants and other passengers were, which was at the sign of the White Horse. But Michael Watson, for shame, would not go in with us. When our merchants saw us, they began to be very angry, saying that they had sought all about, and thought that we had been drowned or come to some evil fortune. But I bid them hold their peace, and let me tell my adventures. When I had told them all the story, they wondered at my boldness, and some Greeks that were there said they never heard that any Englishman was ever there before. It was then about 12 of the clock, and 9 of these gentlemen would needs go presently thither to see that which I had done, and because I would not go again, being weary, for it was 4 miles thither, they hired a guide, and yet when they came to the mountain, they missed of the right way, and did climb upon the rocks, so that some of them got falls and broke their shins, but at last they got thither, and the way for them by me being prepared, they were bid very welcome. But their guide had instructed them with that which I never thought on, the which was, that at their first coming they should go into the chapel, and there offer some money, as little as they would, and then they should have all kind entertainment. So very late in the evening they returned safely again, and gave me thanks for that which they had seen. The 30th day I went with 3 more, having a Greek to show us the way into the castle. End of section 4. Section 5 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. May 1599. The first day of May we saw there greatest traverses or sports that they have in all the year, for that day doth meet at the town of Zante all the able men of the Greeks, with their best horses and artillery, which is nothing but staves, to run at the ring or at quinton, a game of horsemanship in which a lance is tilted at a target on a post. They borrowed our 5 trumpeters to sound when they run at ring the prizes. The manner of it was so simple that it is not worth keeping in memory. In the forenoon they run quinton for a prize, the afternoon at ring. The 2nd of May we departed from Zante. The Turks, which were passengers in our ship, and came with us from Algiers in Barbary, and were to go with us to Scanderoon, did somewhat hasten us on of our voyage, and the wind being fair, we set sail the 2nd of May. The same day we sailed very near an island called Travail, in which we did see a castle, and in that castle, or in some monastery near unto it, there be always 30 friars, and no women in that island, neither any more houses. It is low ground and level, and a little above 1 mile in length. Probably the Strophides, the largest of which is still called Convent Island, and has a convent on it of monks only. The 3rd day we entered in betwixt Negroponte, the mainland of Greece, and a fine island called Cythera. They say that in this island fair Helen was born, and from thence stolen away before the destruction of Troy. The 4th and 5th day, having but a little gale of wind, we sailed close by the shore of Crete. This island is 50 leagues in length. We sailed near unto that high hill called Crete, where St. Paul preached. And an old Jew that was a passenger in our ship told us that on the top of that hill doth stand a brazen man, holding a bow bent as if he were shooting against the east, and he said that it was placed there by art magic, before which time few ships could live upon those seas, the easterly winds were so furious. But since that time they have been as other places or seas are. Over against Crete we left many little islands, specially at the east end, Milos and Antimilos. The 6th day we had a very straight entry betwixt 2 islands at 11 of the clock, and did run within a boat length of the shores. They be very huge and upright mountains. That which we left on our right hand is called Cassos, a place not inhabited. The other upon our left hand is called Scarpanto, and it is inhabited. In this island there be very great store of fowl, that in the night time do roost in the ground, as our conies in England do. 16 leagues from thence is the island of Rhodes, but since that island was taken by the Turks, the Rhodes, the Knights of Rhodes, hath been kept by the Spaniard at Malta. The 7th day we saw the coast of Caramania. The 8th and 9th we were in a manner becalmed. The 10th and 11th and 12th we sailed by the coast of Cyprus, having it upon our left hand. Near unto the west end we saw a town called Paphos. 8 leagues further, at Cape Gata, we set a man ashore who was a Greek and born in Cyprus, and there dwelled. But having a brother dwelling in Crete, whom he had not in a long time seen, he got passage in a ship to go to Crete. But the wind would not suffer the ship to touch there, but carried that man to Zante, and in 3 months' space he could not meet with any ship to carry him back again to Crete. When our ship came, he hearing that we were to sail by Crete, he fell at our master's feet, and craved passage in our ship thither. So he was taken in. Yet when we sailed close by the shore of Crete, our master would not land him there, but carried him to Cyprus and set him on shore there, the which I thought was the man's hard fortune, and so he thought himself, for he wept bitterly because he had spent so much time and could not see his brother, whom he so dearly loved. About 10 leagues from the east end of this island, in Cyprus, near unto Cape Grego, there is a great and large town called Famagusta. It is a harbor or good port. There doth lie the most of their galleys and other shipping. The 13th day we sailed just to the east end of Cyprus, for the wind was very small. The island is the most pleasant of any that hitherto I did ever see. The shores be low, and plain fields rising into the land still higher and higher, that a man may see near 20 miles into the country where we set the man ashore. We saw great store of wild swine, but out of all question it is a very fruitful country. When we were about the middle of Cyprus, we saw Mount Lebanon, which is in Assyria, and but 2 small days' journey from Jerusalem. The 14th, having a fresh gale of wind, we recovered the Cape Canceli (Ras el Khazir), the which is near unto Scanderoon. The 15th we came to an anchor in the road before Scanderoon, the which is in the very bottom of all the straits as far as any ship can go. The 16th day our master gunner, 2 of his mates, Mr. Chancey our surgeon, 1 of our trumpeters, myself, and my mate John Harvey, every one of us having a musket with powder and shot, we went ashore, and through the mountains there be exceedingly high, so that no ship dare go within 2 miles of the shore for fear of not having a wind to carry them out again, yet betwixt those mountains and the sea there be desert places, thick woods, and bogs, wherein doth breed score of wild fowl, and also wild beasts, namely swine and foxes. We having entered into these woods, thinking to kill some wild fowl, our minds were troubled to find out some pathway, for fear of tearing our clothes, and every 2 or 3 boat lengths we should find a man called a mountaineer lying in a bush, having in his hand either a bow and arrows, or else a piece, the which weapons, as we supposed, they did carry to kill wild fowl. But we, having strayed some 3 miles into the wilderness, we found a square plain, the which was nothing but a quagmire, and in the midst thereof was 2 mighty great buffaloes, beasts bigger than our great oxen. At the first we saw nothing but their heads, and they made a great noise with their snuffling, and in the end went running away, which was a wonder to us, for had it been an ox or cow or horse of ours, they would there have been drowned. Whilst we stood watching at this, we espied a great company, to the number of about 40, of the aforesaid mountaineers, the which were gathered together and going about to catch us by enclosing us about. The company being in that place, we knew not how to withstand, but only by flying away, and the woods that were betwixt us and the sea were so high that we could not see the sea nor the mast of our ship, but running at a venture through thick and thin, thorns and briars tearing our clothes, at the last we recovered a fair plain where we might see our ship, and within a mile of the shore. Then were we glad, and took our ease, where we found a fair fountain of very comfortable water, for we were fasting and faint with travel. After we had cooled and refreshed ourselves, we returned through the roadstead, plat, or foundations of the town or city of Scanderoon, so called by the Turks, but formerly called Alexandretta. There we might see great pieces of walls, wherein goodly houses and monasteries had been, which in the same is now nothing but bogs and ponds, walls of houses, and a castle so sunk into the ground with water about it that nobody can go unto it. We did see there upon the walls of an old house very strange varmint running up and down at great pace, some of them bigger than a great toad, and of the same color, but they had long tails like a rat. Lizards. Some of them were longer made and less of body, and so many others of diverse fashions. At another time my mate Harvey and I went into the fields to wash our linen, and whilst it was a drying we went to gather some fruit, for there be great store of good fruit that is common coming to a white damson tree. As we were a gathering we espied a great adder that was in the tree upon the boughs, at least 12 or 14 feet from the ground. He was even ready to leap upon one of us. As soon as we turned our back to run away, he leapt out of the tree and run into a thicket of briars. A great number of such small matters I will omit. The 18th day our ship was to be unladen of such goods as was appointed to go to Aleppo. But that morning, as soon as we were up, we saw a marvelous goodly show of tents upon the side of that mountain, stretching down unto that fountain which I spoke of before, the which when our master saw, he sent a boat ashore to know the cause, and our merchant sent him word that he should not by any means send any goods or any man ashore until he did see all the tents gone, for there was the soldiers of Damascus, a part of the Great Turk's army, that were going to the wars, and if they did find anything on the shore that did like them, they would take it as their own. So at night we saw these tents a taking up, for by reason the country is very hot, they do travel by night and not by day. So for 4 days there came every night a fresh company, and we kept aboard our ship. Every day there would come riding to the seaside a great company of brave horsemen with their lances. Some had their negroes to carry their lances and other weapons. Some said that they were sent for to Constantinople, the which is 20 days' journey from Scanderoon. The 30th day the French consul, which is resident at Aleppo, dined aboard our ship. The same day towards night our men began to unload our ship of such goods as was for Aleppo, for sooner they could not well by reason of the abundance of Janissaries that passed that way, and pitched their tents within 1.5 miles of the road. And it is a very uncomfortable place. There is but 3 hostelries, one Italian, one French, and one English. Some little cottages there be made of reeds, like a summer house, and 2 small tents. June. The 1st of June there was letters conveyed very strangely from Aleppo to Scanderoon, the which is 80 miles distance. After I had been there a little while, I perceived that it was an ordinary thing, for as we were sitting in our merchant's house talking, and pigeons were a feeding in the house before us, there came a white cock pigeon flying in, and light on the ground amongst his fellows, the which when one of the merchants saw, he said, "Welcome, honest Tom," and taking him up, there was tied with a thread under his wing a letter the bigness of a 12d, and it was dated but 4 hours before. After that I saw the like done, and always in 4 hours. The 4th day in the morning there were pitched above 20 tents at the place aforesaid, but the number of brave Janissaries I could not learn, because I could not be conversant with them, or any that did know it. The most of them were horsemen, and every man had his lance, and most of them his boy or slave to bear his lance, and every man his bow and quiver of arrows, and scimitar by his side. Not only their manner of shouting, but their bows and arrows be strange. In the time of our being at Scanderoon, our long boat went every Friday to Tarsus, the city or town where the apostle St. Paul was born, for that was their market day, and she went to buy victuals. Tarsus is but 16 miles from Scanderoon, and about the midway, or somewhat nearer to Scanderoon, is the place where Jonas was cast out of the whale's belly, as the Turks and Greeks told us. The master gunner of our ship, one of his mates, my mate Harvey, and I, with 2 sailors, which rowed us thither, we went to that very place, and there we gathered and filled a sack full of samphire, which did grow upon those rocks. End of section 5. Section 6 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. The 10th of this month we departed from Scanderoon towards Constantinople, the wind being directly against us, boarding it from shore to shore. Towards night we came near to a fair town on our right hand. At one end of it there is a fair and large castle, and the town is a great length by the seaside. This town is called Ayash, about 6 leagues from Tarsus, which the Turks do call Bayas, for they do change the names of most towns. The 12th, 13th, and 14th we sailed by the coast, and near the shore of Caramania, which is in Asia the less. The wind being nothing favorable, we had great leisure to look upon the shores. The 15th day we saw Cyprus again. The 20th day we recovered to a cape, which is 100 leagues from Scanderoon. The 23rd we sailed by Castellorosso, which is in Little Asia, an island much frequented by Greek mariners. The 25th we saw afar the famous island called the Rhodes, which in times past hath been kept by Christian knights, but now inhabited by Turks. The 26th we sailed by the shore of the Rhodes, of the which we took sufficient view, for the wind was directly against us. We might see where divers forts hath been upon little mountains. This island is 14 or 15 leagues in length, and 4 leagues in breadth. The 27th we sailed by the northern end of the island, and at the north end of the island, and at the northeast corner of the same, there is a town or city, which for situation and strength I cannot give it due commendations. This 27th day died one Thomas Cable, who was under 20 years of age, and son to one of the owners of our ship. As we were to pass betwixt the north end of the island and the shore of Asia, which is but 5 leagues betwixt, and the wind directly in the gulf against us, and also we wanted fresh water and other victuals very scarce, our master and merchants thought it good to touch at the town. Coming to an anchor near unto the walls of the town, there we found in the road a galleon of the Great Turk's, the biggest ship he hath, about 1,000 ton, a very cart, a ship of no strength, yet was she richly laden, and came from Alexandria. We were no sooner come to an anchor but the Turks began to come aboard us, so that the very first day there came aboard us not so few as 500 rude Turks, and likewise every day that we stayed there they ceased not. The next day, being the 28th of this month, the Captain Pasha, governor of the town, being gone abroad with their galleys on some great business, the Kia, Turkish for deputy, who for the time was captain, he with the chiefest men of the town came aboard our ship, and she was trimmed up in as handsome manner as we could for the time. Our gun room was one of the fairest rooms in the ship, and pleasant to come into. In the gun room I had a pair of virginals, the which our master gunner, to make the better show, desired me to set them open. When the Turks and Jews came in and saw them, they wondered what it should be. But when I played on them, then they wondered more. Divers of them would take me in their arms and kiss me, and wished that I would dwell with them. When the captain's deputy had well viewed our ship, the captain and master of our ship, according to the custom of the country, did give unto this man as much broadcloth for a present as would make his captain a vest or a gown after the Turkish manner, and so they went away. As soon as they were gone, the steward of our ship and his men, my mate Harvey and I, went on shore to see the town within. When we came to the gate where we should enter, I looked well upon it, and saw a superscription written or cut in stone, but I could not understand it, only the year of our Lord when this gate was built or re-edified, and it was set down Anno Domini 1475. When we had entered this gate, the first turning that we could find upon our right hand, we turned up a very fine street to go to the walls. We there found mighty great ordnance, both of brass and iron, the which was made by Christians. Some great pieces of brass that were burst when the Turks lay siege unto the town. There were marvelous great pieces that were made of hammered iron, every stave at the least 3 inches square, and hooped about like a barrel, the bore so big as 2 men might creep in both at once. A Greek that guided us about the walls told us that one of these pieces, being once discharged, could not be charged again and made ready to be discharged in less than 2 hours. This town is double walled. Between the walls the distance of a pair of short boats, and the ditch is very deep, but dry. To be short, having passed round about the town without any contradiction or stay, only the time that we drank a pitcher of wine, which cost us but 1 penny, we made haste unto the said side, and so to go aboard. When we were without the gate, looking for our boat, we see it coming off from our ship. When it came to the shore, there was in it Master May, our preacher, and one that was appointed to be our ambassador's under butler. Quoth Master May to me, "Are you ready to go aboard?" "Yea, truly," said I, "for I am very hungry and weary with travel." "I pray you," said he, "go back again with me to the gate, that I may see the superscription over it, and set 1 foot within the gate, and then I will go back again with you." So we went all back with Master May to the gate. When we were there, we saw afar off a fountain of water made like one of our conduits, with a fair bright dish of steel hanging in a chain, for the Turks drink nothing but water. "I pray you," quoth Master May, "go with me to yonder fountain, that I may drink some of that water, for it seemeth to be very good, and I have a great desire to drink some of it." So we went all with him to the fountain, and every one of us did drink a dish of water. As we were a drinking, there came unto us 2 stout Turks, and said, "Parle Franco, Signor?" which is, "Can ye speak Italian, Signor?" "So," quoth Master May. So, as they were a talking, I looked about me, and a Turk sitting upon his stall, who did know me, for he had heard me play on my virginals and kissed me aboard our ship, he beckoned me to come unto him. And when I came somewhat near him, in kindness and some love he bore unto me, he made me a signe to be gone, and pointed to the gate, and bid me make haste. So to the gate went I as fast as I could trudge, and my mate Harvey and the rest of my company followed after as fast as they could, leaving Master May and the under butler talking with the Turks, for they too could speak Italian a little, and so could none of us. When we were gotten without the gate, we looked back towards the fountain, but we see nobody there, for the Turks had carried Master May and the other man to prison. By chance we found our boat and sailors there ready, and aboard our ship we went. When we came aboard, I went presently to our master and told him all that had happened. When I told him how I had been about the town, he imagined that we by that means had given some offence, because it is dangerous for a stranger, being a Christian, to take a view of that town, and so thought that for our fault these men were taken prisoners. What words did pass betwixt our master and me, I will omit till God send us into England. No man durst be so bold as to go ashore all that day, and neither did any come aboard us. The next morning a little Greek boat came from the town aboard our ship, with a letter from Master May, directed not only to our master and merchants, but also to the rest of their company. This letter was written so pitifully, as if they had been prisoners there 7 years, showing how they were taken from the fountain and coupled together like as they had been 2 dogs, with a chain of cold rusty iron, and led into a dark dungeon, there chain fastened with a staple unto a post, where they must continually stand, and neither sit nor kneel, and every 2 hours were shaken over them whips made of wire, threatening most cruel punishment, and therefore desired that by all means they would seek some means for their speedy release, or else that they might be presently put to death, for they were not able to endure that miserable life and sharp punishment which was likely to be inflicted upon them if the ship did once depart. Our master and merchants were so wounded with reading this letter and pitying the prisoner's case, and banishing all fear, they resolved to go ashore. Our master and 5 merchants having made themselves as brave as they could, they went ashore very stoutly to the captain's house, desiring to speak with the Kia, the Captain Pasha his deputy, who, after he had made them to stay while he came unto them to know the cause of their coming, one of our men that could best speak Italian told him that they found themselves very much aggrieved that their men should be stayed as prisoners and not to be informed of the cause, and likewise wondered how they durst be so bold as to make stay of any one of our men, we being going with so rich a present to the Grand Signior. And those 2 men which they had stayed were 2 special men, one of them our divine and preacher, the other the chief and principal man for the present. This with other words they said to fear them. Also they said that if he would not presently deliver those men, they would hire a galley and send to the Grand Signior, that he might understand how they were wronged and hindered in their voyage without any occasion given to our knowledge. The answer of the Kia was this: Yesterday I was aboard your ship, presenting my captain's person in his absence. You gave me not such entertainment as my place did require. you made me no good cheer, neither did you give me a present for my captain." Our men answered, "The best entertainment that we could give unto you for the time you had. Good cheer we could make you none, for we had nothing for ourselves. Our coming to this place was to have some relief here, and to furnish ourselves with such victuals as this country yieldeth for our money. Whereas you say that you had no present for your captain, you say not truly, for you had so much broadcloth as would make your captain a vest." "But then," said the Kia, "I had none for myself, and one will I have before you have your men." Then said they, "Is that all the occasion that moved you to imprison our men? And will the gift of such a present give you content that we may have our men?" "Yea, surely," said the Kia. And so this quarrel was ended. Here you may see the base and covetous condition of these rude and barbarous dogged Turks, and how little they do regard Christians. This city wall, which is next unto the sea, is marvelous strong, and so fortified with great ordinance, not upon the wall, but their noses to look through the wall, so placed that no ship can pass on that side of the land without leave. Within the town, in most streets, a man cannot trot a horse. The streets lie so full of bullets (small black and white paving stones) made of marble, and of all sizes, from 16 inches to 3 inches. Many other things concerning this city and island I do omit till my return into England. But of all the towns or cities that in my life I have seen, for strength I never saw the like. End of section 6. Section 7 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. Now, having redeemed our men out of prison, the next day, being the 30th, or last day of June, we weighed anchor, hoisted sail, and so to sea. The 1st of July, being under sail, we entered the sea Aegean, passing by and amongst the isles of Archipelaga, where is a marvelous company of little islands. The 2nd day we sailed by one of them amongst the rest, leaving it south. It is called Stanco (Caos). Upon the north side very pleasant low ground, where seemed to be not only store of vines, but plenty of other fruit. Also we see a very fine town, whose walls resist the waves of the sea. Within the town very fair buildings, the which was never done by the Turks, though they now enjoy the same. It was our hap to cast anchor before the town all night, but in the morning we set sail. The town is called Stanco by the name of the island. The 3rd day, standing upon the spar deck of our ship, I told no less than 16 islands which were round about us. The 4th day, leaving Leros south, we came to the island Samos, where that famous philosopher Pythagoras was born. This island for the most part is inhabited with Greeks. The wind being very contrary to our course, that, finding a fair road, we cast anchor there, where we might see a little town a mile and better from the shore. The people in the town, seeing our ship come to an anchor, we saw them run into the fields and drive away their cattle with great speed up into the mountains. Also in the road, half a mile from us, was a little ship or bark, the which they hauled ashore and carried away the goods that was in her. but they took more pains than they needed, for we meant them no harm, and 1 hour within night we weighed anchor, but the wind was so directly in the narrow passage we had to go betwixt that island and another, that we could not pass, but were forced to put in again at the southeast corner of the same island, under huge mountains, Mount Kirky at the west end of Samos. To my thinking it is only one pumice stone, and of certainty all that part which was next unto the sea is a firme stone, and very straight upright. The next day some of our men went ashore to see if they could find any fresh water, and to cut down some firewood. One of those men, being a very bold fellow, stole away from his fellows and went to the town aforesaid. He presumed partly upon his language, but the rest of his fellows came aboard without him, and every one did think he was taken prisoner. The next day about 10 of the clock he came to the seaside and waved for a boat, so when he came aboard he brought with him some hens and some bread, and was half drunk with wine. About 2 hours after came to the shore the captain of that island, who was a Turk, and brought with him a present, in hope to receive a better. Here doth grow a kind of grain or corn, which they do call millet, a small seed, much like unto canary bird seed, the increase of it at the least 150-fold. They make of it finer bread than of wheat. The 8th day died one John Canill, servant to Mr. Wiseman, merchant, who was also one of the owners of our ship. The 10th day we weighed anchor, and proved to pass our course, but the wind would not suffer us, being west and by north as it was before. When we saw that we could not prevail against the wind, we came round to that place where we did first anchor, thinking there to get some better store of victuals and fresh water, but being very dark before we could get into the harbor by the negligence of him that sounded, our ship was aground, the which turned us to great fear and much trouble a great part of that night. Yet in the end all was well, but in the morning, when we did think to have gone ashore, we espied 4 galleys and a frigate, which came stealing by the shore. The galleys stayed a league off, under the shore of Asia the Less, but the frigate came into the road to see what we were, and there came to an anchor, the which when our master perceived, not knowing what their intent was, he caused anchor to be weighed with all speed, and being under sail, the frigate went before us, and also the galleys, for then our master proposed to go that way which before he durst not adventure. For whereas we should have left this island on our right hand, now we left it on our left hand, and ventured to go betwixt a marvelous straight passage for such a ship as ours was. Even in the straightest place these 4 galleys stayed for us, but when they see our strength and boldness they were afraid of us. They had placed their galleys close by the shore, so that either the beak head did touch the shore, or else their oars might, and yet had we hardly room enough to pass betwixt their oars and the mainland. Our master caused all our company to stand up and make as great a show as we could, and when we were right over against them, our 5 trumpets sounded suddenly, which made them wonder, looking earnestly upon us, but gave us not a word. So we dashed them out of countenance who meant to have feared us, and we left them by the shore of Samos, being the 11th day of July. The 12th day we descried Chios. The 13th we sailed by the shore of that Ilande. The 14th we came to an anchor in a roade 2 leagues short of the great towne or cittie of Chios, so called by the name of the Ilande. The 15th daye in the morninge, our long boate being ready to go ashore for freshe water, which we stood great neede of, for in 3 dayes before we had nothinge to eate but rice boyled in stinkinge water, and our beverage did also stinke. The boate being launched, 3 of our gentlemen passengers came unto me and asked me if I would go ashore to see if we could buy some freshe victuals, and I said, Yea, with all my hearte. As soon as we were in the boate, the Master was told of it, and he looked over the ships side and spoke unto me, for the other might have gone with his good will and never come again, neither would he have stayed half an hour for them, but they did know that he would not leave me behinde. So the Master asked me whither I would go, and I told him but to set foot on shore, drink some freshe water, and come aborde with the boate. Then he bid me come aborde againe presently, but the gentlemen had me betwixt them and held me fast, neither did I meane to do as he bid me. Well, said the Master, I see ye will go ashore, and the company that is now with you will draw you up to yonder towne which you see, and I will tell you before you go that which you shall finde true. In no parte of the world doth grow any masticke but in this Ilande, and now is the time for it. The commodities here are nothing but masticke, cotton wool, and wines. You cannot go to yonder towne, but you must needes go through the gardens where these things grow, and if you be seen to take one sprig of masticke, or one pod of cotton wool, or one bunch of grapes, it is a whole year's imprisonment, and there will be no redemption for you. Therefore do not say but that I gave you sufficient warning, etc. This Ilande of Chios is rising from the seaside some 3 or 4 miles, and this towne which we mente to go unto is 2 miles from the sea, and it seemed afar off to be a pretty towne with a castle in the midst of it. When the Master had told us his mind, for the dangers we might fall into unawares, then he said to me that if I came not backe again with the boate when she had taken in water, he would set sayle and be gone. But we feared not that, for as soon as we came to lande, we went directly to the towne. It was upon the Sunday, and the people, seeing our ship come to an anchor, and seldom had seen the like in that country, and likewise saw us come ashore, many women and children came to meet us, who wondered as much at us as we did at them. We went on right forwards, giving nobody one word, till we came into the middle of the towne under the castle wall, and there standing still, looking about us, there came a Greeke unto us, and demanded whom we sought for, or whither we would go. 2 of our company that could speake Italian well, who answered that our coming was to buy some victuals. This man said there was a consul in the towne, and we must repair unto him before we could have anything. So he went with us unto the consul's house. The streets were full of people, which flocked together to look upon us. When we came to the consul's house, we were to go up a pair of stairs, made like a ladder at one end of the house without. The ladder went up to a stage or scaffold, which was on the back side of his house, that looked right towards the sea where our ship lay at anchor. The consul was upon this stage, sitting at a table, and with him there were 6 very gallant gentlewomen, and very beautiful. As soon as we came up, these brave women arose and went away, and the consul came unto us, embracing us one after another, and bid us very welcome. He caused the table to be furnished with a very fine banquet of sweetmeats, and but 2 little cakes of bread. Our drink was very good raspis (raspberry). Whilst we sat there talking, the common sort of the people in that town came to the garden walls, for on that side of the house was the consul's garden, and the walls were of stone without mortar, and the people did so much desire to see us that they did climb upon the walls. The consul many times stood up chiding them and shaking his hand at them, threatening punishment, but the more he chid, the more the people did climb upon the wall, and the wall being overladen, down came the wall, making a great noise, the length of a pair of boats, and almost so much in another place, the which made the consul very angry, and he might very well have wished that we had not come there. Where we sat we might see our ship right before us, and we see the boat go aboard with water. In this meantime the consul had sent 2 men about the town to see what victuals they could get for us. At the end of 2 hours they came again and told us that they could find nothing that was to be sold at that time, being Sunday, but about a bushel of garlic, the which we were contented to take, because we would have something, and we saw that we were troublesome to the consul. So having taken our leaves of the consul, he appointed one to carry our garlic to the town's end before us. Going down the ladder from the scaffold, upon both sides of the ladder did stand the chieftest women in the town, in degrees one above the other, to see us at our going away. They stood in such order as we might see their faces and breasts naked, yet were they very richly apparelled, with chains about their necks and jewels in them and in their ears, their heads very comely dressed with ribbons of diverse colors. But that which made us most admire them was their beauty and clear complexion. I think that no part of the world can compare with the women in that country for beauty. But afterwards we understood that if we had gone to the city, which was but 6 miles further, we should have been much better entertained, for in that city was an English consul, whose name was Mr. William Aldridge, a fine gentleman. But our master would not put in there for fear of being put to some charge, for he was a very miserable and sparing man, all for his own profit, and not regarding to satisfy other men's desires, or to give his passengers any content. Being come aboard our ship with our bag of garlic, it was not so slenderly regarded but that we might have had chapmen (buyers) for it, and our money again with profit. Section 8 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. The same day anchor was weighed and we under sail, but we profited little, for before the morning we came to an anchor again, something near to the same place. The next day, being the 16th day, we weighed anchor again, and were becalmed before the great town of Chios, very near unto it. But our master would not suffer any man to go ashore. The 19th of July we came to the island Tenedos, the which is right over against the south end of the Platte or ruins of the great city of Troy, the wind being directly against us, and also a great current which comes from the river of Hellespont, the Dardanelles. We came to an anchor by the shore, near to that south gate of Troy. A great part of the gate is yet standing, with some huge pieces of those mighty walls that have been. The 20th day we weighed anchor again, but could do no good, for the wind and current was against us, and we came to an anchor again near to the same place. The 21st day died a boy called John Felton, who was born at Yarmouth. Also the same day I and some more of our company went ashore and saw some monuments in Troy, pieces of walls, escutcheons, and marble pillars. We being come aboard again, 2 of the Great Turk's galleys came by us, some rowing and some sailing. Because they should not come aboard us, our master caused anchor to be weighed, and towards night, the wind failing, we came to an anchor again. The 22nd day 2 frigates which came down the river Hellespont, seeing our ship, and knowing her to be a ship from England by her flag in the maintop, 2 English men that were in one of the frigates desired of their captain that they might hail our ship. The captain was very willing so to do, the which our captain or master, perceiving and knowing the frigates to be Turks, and because they should not come aboard us, he caused anchor to be weighed with all speed, for the Turks' condition is such that if they come aboard, the captains would have had a present or begged something. So by that time that they were near come unto us, we were under sail. Then the 2 Englishmen called unto us, and after some salutations, they told our master that there was coming at hand the admiral of the Great Turk's navy, and in his company 15 galleys more, and also showed how we might know the admiral from the rest, for his galley had 2 lanterns on his poop, and the rest but 1 apiece. And so these frigates departed. No sooner were the frigates gone, but we descried the galleys very near unto us, for they came down the river Hellespont at a corner by the walls of Troy. The sight of these galleys, to our thinking, was a marvelous show. They were so curiously painted with fair colors and good varnish. The slaves that were in them rowing sat all naked. As they were rowing towards Tenedos, the wind came fair for them, and then they cut their sails, and the slaves were covered with a piece of canvas that overspread them all. When the galleys were under sail, they showed much better than they did before. The sails were made of cotton wool, and one cloth very white, and the other very blue, and the masts of the same colors. As they were sailing by us, our master caused the gunners to give them 3 pieces, the which was but miserably done, yet being so near the walls of Troy, the echo was such that every piece seemed to be 5 by the report. Then the admiral sent a galley unto us to demand his present, and also to ask why we did salute him no better. The galley being come unto us with his message, our master answered that the admiral's present was caulked under the hatches, neither did he know what it was until he came to our ambassador at Constantinople. And for that there was no better salutation or more shot given to the admiral, the reason was that he did not know that the admiral was there. If he had, he would have given him all the ordnance in our ship. This excuse being made, the captain of that galley who did not come aboard us, but sent a little boat to our ship's side, for the galley durst not come near us, but the men in this boat said that their captain might not return to his admiral except he carried him some small present. Then our master, making diligent search in our ship, he found 2 holland chests, the which he sent to the admiral. Then the captain of that galley demanded a present for himself. Our master answered that he had nothing. Then he desired to have some tobacco and tobacco pipes, the which in the end he had. And so he sailed to Tenedos, where the admiral and the rest of the galleys were come to an anchor. At his departure our master gave him 1 piece with the shot. About 2 hours after this galley was gone, the wind being very small, and took a short right before Cape Janissary, by some people called the Cape of Janissaries. There I went ashore with some of our merchants, where we found a little scattering village, inhabited with Greeks. There we bought some bread and hens. Also there we saw more at large the ruins of the walls and houses in Troy, and from thence I brought a piece of white marble pillar, the which I broke with my own hands, having a good hammer, which my mate Harvey did carry ashore for the same purpose. And I brought this piece of marble to London. This Cape Janissary is about 10 miles from Tenedos. Now, being come aboard our ship, we set sail the same day, and entered into the river Hellespont 7 leagues, and there came to an anchor near unto the 2 castles called Sestos and Abydos. Sestos is in Thracia, and Abydos in Little Asia. These 2 castles are very strongly kept for the defence of entering the Straits of Hellespont aforesaid, which is the way that all shipping must pass by that goeth to Constantinople. The 24th a captain of one of the castles came aboard our ship and brought with him a present. Divers other Turkish captains came aboard us in the time that we stayed there, and also the consul of Gallipoli. Being there by chance, he came aboard us. This consul is a friar and very fine gentleman. August. In the time that we stayed here for a wind, we went many times ashore, but what happened and what we saw at this time I pass over. But our ambassador, who was then at Constantinople, hearing that our ship had lain long there for a wind, he sent down a churmagee, a boat rowed by slaves, to fetch up certain letters, and also for us that were for the present. In the churmagee came Master Thomas Glover, Master Bailey of Salisbury, and a janissary. From Constantinople to that place is near about 250 miles. The next morning, being the 5th of August, not only we that were for the present, but also Master May, our preacher, and other gentlemen that went to serve the ambassador, would needs leave the ship and go with us, for it was thought by our physicians that one of our sailors was infected with the plague. The churmagee could not carry us all, but Master Glover did hire 2 boats more. We were in all 16, with Master Glover and Master Bailey. The 6th day we arrived at Gallipoli, and coming to the Italian consul's house, who is a friar, he received us very kindly, but our stay was so short that we had no time to see the city. Having fair wind, we made haste to sea again. About the middle of the night following, having no wind at all, and our men weary with rowing, we went ashore, where we found 3 or 4 windmills, and the walls of an old castle. Though it was very dark, yet some of our men rode up and down till they found a little cottage where they got some fire. Others broke down an old hedge, and so we made a great fire under the castle wall. At Gallipoli, the day before, at our going to sea, we bought half a mutton, and here we boiled the one half and roasted the other. Though it was but in a homely fashion, yet we eat both merrily and sweetly. Our fire was so large that we had heat enough. Before the morning we went to sea again. When it was day the wind rose so great that we were forced to go ashore, and to haul our boats on land at a great town called Relissea. There we found wine and bread great plenty, but some of our company did walk into the fields and entered into a vineyard to gather grapes. But being pursued by the Greeks that owned the vineyard, they were not only in danger of receiving some hurt, but also of losing their garments. Cuthbert Bull had lost his cloak, and one that went to be the ambassador's cook was pinioned, his girdle and knives taken away. But one Master Gonzal, a very stout man, redeemed those things again, and made the Greeks run away, for he beat them with their own weapons, but not in their own ground. Then the poor Greeks made a great complaint unto the governor of the town, who was then in our company, and had brought us a sheep for a present. He quickly made us all friends, and Master Glover was very willing to make the Greeks restitution for the hurt was done them. The governor or captain of this town is a very stout and strong man of his person, but activity he had none, for some in our company did prove him many ways. He could neither run, leap, wrastle, pitch the bar, the stone upon the hand, throw the sledge, neither any defense with sword or cudgel. But if he did catch a man in his arms fathom-wise, he would so crush him that he would make his heart ache and ready to stop his breath. He being asked the reason why he could do none of these exercises, he answered that Turks would never practice the same that Christians did. At this town we stayed all night. The next morning our captain, Master Glover, gave unto this governor or captain 2 or 3 pieces of gold called sequins, for his love and good company, for he was very willing to make us merry and loath that we should depart. The same day, being the 8th day, we took our journey by land, towing our boats by the shore 10 miles. In the afternoon we came to a town called Hora, for our boats was not able to go any further, the wind was so high and the sea so rough. There we stayed all night. At this town, but especially at the last before, is great store of corn and vineyards, very good, also great store of silkworms, wine, a pottle for 1 penny. But the inhabitants of all these towns are very poor. The Turks doth keep them so under, levying upon the fruits of these poor people's labors. All this country which we traveled through from over against Troy, or the place where we left our ship, is Thracia, wherein Constantinople doth stand. End of section 8. Section 9 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The next day, being the 9th day, we left our boats at Hora and went 3 miles further to a town called Canasea, but further we could not go anything near to the sea, for it is so hilly and full of woods, a very wilderness. So there we stayed that day and all night, ever looking for our boats, but they could not come. Our captain, Master Glover, when we had well viewed the town, and see that the condition of the people was not to our liking, he made a choice of a house for us to lodge in, that was next unto the sea. The town stood upon a hill, and this house upon the very brink or end of the hill, being the height of St. Paul's Church above the sea, and we were to go up a ladder into a gallery that was made at the end of the house, looking towards the sea, and there was a little door to go into the room where we should lodge upon the bare boards. For in all this time that we traveled, we never put off our clothes, neither did we find any bed to rest in. In this room there was not so much as a stool or form to sit upon, nor anything in the house but one shelf, whereupon stood 2 pitchers and 2 earthen platters, not one window to give light, but one little hole through a stone wall. We being in this town before noon, to pass away the time after we had made a short dinner, we walked down to the wood side, which is close to the sea, a wilderness or desert wood, which is put to no use, as we did think, by the side of it. There we saw diverse sorts of vermin, which we have not the like in England. Growing towards night, and remembering what hard lodgings we should have in our new inn, finding a thick soft weed that growed by the woodside, every one of us that was there gathered a bundle of it to lay under our heads when we should sleep. Night being come, and our supper ended, every man chalked out his resting place upon the bare boards. Our janissary placed himself upon a board that lay loose upon the joists. Every man had his sword ready drawn, lying by his side. 2 of our company had muskets. When we had lain about half an hour, we that had our weeden pillows were suddenly woefully tormented with a vermin that was in our pillows, the which did bite far worse than fleas, so that we were glad to throw away our pillows and sweep the house clean, but we could not cleanse ourselves so soon. Thus as we lay waking in a dark uncomfortable house, Master Glover told us what strange vermin and beasts he had seen in that country, for he had lived long there. He spoke very much of adders, snakes, and serpents, the difference and the bigness of some which he had seen. Passing away the time with such like talk, the most part of us fell asleep, and some that could not sleep lay still and said nothing for disquieting of the rest, all being wished. Master Bailey had occasion to go to the door to make water. The door was very little, and opened very straightly into the gallery. The wind blowed marvellous strongly, and made a great noise, for the house lay very open to the sea and weather. Master Bailey, when he lay down to sleep, had untied his garters a little, so that when he came into the gallery, the wind blew his garter that was loose and trailed after him round about the other leg. It was a great silk garter, and by the force of the wind it fettered his legs both fast together. Our talk a little before of adders, snakes, and serpents was yet in his remembrance, and the place was near where much vermin was. He thought they had swarmed about him, but about his legs he thought he was sure of a serpent, so that suddenly he cried out with all the voice he had, "A serpent! A serpent! A serpent!" and was so frightened that he could not find the door to get in, but made a great bustling and noise in the gallery. On the other side, we that were in the house did think that he had said assaulted, assaulted, for before night we doubted that some treachery would happen unto us in that town, so that we thought the house had been beset with people to cut our throats. There was 15 of us in the house, and it was but a little house. Every man took his sword in hand, one ready to spoil another, not any one knowing the cause. One that could not find his sword got to the chimney, and offering to climb up, down fell a part of the chimney top upon his head, and hurt him a little. Another that was suddenly awaked struck about him with his sword, and beat down the shelf and broke the pitchers and platters which stood thereon, the room being very dark, for it was about midnight. Others did think they were pulling down the house over our heads. Our janissary, who should have been our guard and have protected us from all dangers, he, likewise doubting the people of the town, and hearing such a noise suddenly, he took up the loose board whereon he lay, and slipped down into the vault. As we were thus all amazed, at the last Master Bailey found the way in at the door. When Master Glover saw him come in, he said unto him, "How now, man, what is the matter? What do you see?" Master Bailey was even breathless with fear, crying out and struggling to get in the door, so that he could not answer him at first. At last he said, a serpent had troubled him. When Master Glover heard him say so, then fear was gone, and he went to the door, and there he found Master Bailey's garter ready to be carried away with the wind. After we a little wondered at our great amazement for so small a cause, Master Glover called every man by his name, to see if any man were slain or wounded, for there was 16 of us in all, our weapons all drawn, and the room was but little. Every man being called, we were all alive, and but small hurts done. At last we found our janissary wanting, who might well be ashamed to make it known where he was. But Master Glover calling him very earnestly, he answered in the vault. He could not get out any way, but Mr. Gonzale took up the board that lay where he went down, and lying along upon the floor, he could but hardly reach him to take him by the hand. Without much ado they pulled him up. When he leaped into the vault, being very sore frightened, he cast off his upper garment and left it behind him in the vault, but no man could persuade him to go down again and fetch it, for the place was loathsome, and it should seem that he was there frightened with something in that kind Master Bailey was. So his garment remained there till the morning that he who owned the house did fetch it. The next morning Master Sharp, Master Lambert, and 2 gentlemen more hired mules and took their journey by land to Stamboli or Constantinople, the which was 3 days' journey. The same day when these 4 gentlemen were gone, we returned to Hora again, where we left our boats, and stayed there all night. In the morning we departed, and in the afternoon we went ashore at a town called Heraclea, otherwise Relling. Betwixt this town and the sea, upon a hill doth stand 22 fair windmills, Every mill has 6 sails. They stand upon a straight line and of equal distance, so as they make a very fair show when we were upon the sea. We were at this town very courteously entertained, where we made merry till midnight, then entering our boats. In the morning, being the 14th day, we came to Celebria, a fair and large town. We went there ashore for wine and water, but we stayed not so long as to see all the town. Here I see great abundance of muskmelons that were as big as our citrons or pumpkins, sold for the value of 1 penny or 3 halfpennies a piece. The 15th day, being Wednesday, we arrived at Constantinople. The 16th our ship came near to the 7 Towers, which is the first port that we come unto of the Seraglio, which doth join close to the city. From that point or corner of the Seraglio unto the city it is almost 2 miles. There our ship came to an anchor, and the next day she began to be new painted. The 17th we went aboard our ship for the present, and carried it unto our ambassador's house in the city of Galata, in the vineyards of Pera, and because there was no room high enough to set it up in his house, he caused a room to be made with all speed without the house in the court to set it up in, that it might there be made perfect before it should be carried to the Seraglio. The 20th day, being Monday, we began to look into our work, but when we opened our chests we found that all gluing work was clean decayed, by reason that it had lain above 6 months in the hold of our ship, which was but newly built, so that the extremity of the heat in the hold of the ship, with the working of the sea and the hotness of the country, was the cause that all gluing failed. Likewise divers of my metal pipes were bruised and broken. When our ambassador, Mr. William Aldridge, and other gentlemen see in what case it was in, they were all amazed, and said that it was not worth 2d. My answer unto our ambassador and to Mr. Aldridge at this time I will omit, but when Mr. Aldridge heard what I said, he told me that if I did make it perfect he would give me of his own purse 15 lire, so about my work I went. Section 10 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. The 23rd the King of Fez came to see my work, and he sat by me half a day. The 27th our ship came nearer unto the Seraglio. The same day the King of Fez came again to see our work. The 28th the Hector, our ship, made her salutation to the Grand Turk, there called the Grand Signior, on the north side of the Seraglio, the Grand Signior being in his kiosk upon the wall which is close to the sea. This salutation was very strange and wonderful in the sight of the Great Turk and all the other Turks. She was, as I have said before, new painted upon every top and ancient, namely maintop, foretop, mizentop, spritsail top, and at every yard arm a silk pennant. All her bravery I cannot now relate. Her fights was out, and in every top as many men with their muskets as could stand conveniently to discharge them. Anchor was weighed, the day very calm and fair. All things being ready, our gunners gave fire, and discharged 80 great shot, and betwixt every great shot a volley of small shot. It was done with very good decorum and true time, and it might well deserve commendation. But one thing I noted, which persuaded my simple conceit, that this great trumpet and charge was very evil bestowed, being done unto an infidel. There was one man sick in the ship, who was the ship carpenter, and with the report of the first great piece that was discharged, he died. Likewise, at the very end of this service, another man, who was one of the stoutest sailors in the ship, and all this while had plied a great piece in the beak head of the ship, as he was ramming in his cartridge of powder, some fire being left in the breech of the piece, the powder took fire and blew the man quite away in the smoke. About 3 days after, all his lower part, from his waist downward, was found 2 miles from that place, and his head in another place. When all was done, the Grand Signior sent 2 men aboard our ship to see how many great pieces there was, for he thought there had been 80, and there was but 27. The 30th day my work was finished and made perfect at the ambassador's house. September. The 2nd day, the Grand Signior desiring to take a better view of our ship, he came in his golden caique upon the water, and went round about the ship, but he came so suddenly that his being there was not known till 2 or 3 hours after. 1 hour after him came the Sultana his mother in the like manner. The 3rd day our ambassador delivered a present to the Vizier Pasha at his house. The 4th day the Grand Signior's secretary, called the Kapajee, came to see our instrument. The 7th day the Bostan Pasha, the chief of the gardens, came to see. Likewise also the head patriarch was expected, but he came not, because some Turks dined with my lord that day. The 8th day, being Saturday, we began to take down our instrument, for that day the Grand Signior went from the Seraglio some 6 miles by water to another Seraglio where the Sultana his mother doth live. For 1 month in the year it is tolerable for him to go to that place, either in August or in September. At any other time he may not go so far from his own Seraglio, except he be guarded with 100,000 men. The 11th day, being Tuesday, we carried our instrument over the water to the Grand Signior's court, called the Seraglio, and there in his most stateliest house I began to set it up. This water which we crossed from Galeta to Seraglio is a stream that cometh from the Black Sea, and is called Hellespont, which parteth Asia and Thracia, and it cometh down by Galeta. A creek of that river, the Golden Horn, goeth up into the country about 6 miles, which parteth the 2 cities of Constantinople and Galeta. They may go betwixt them by land, but it is 12 miles, and to cross the water it is but 1 mile. At every gate of the Seraglio there always sitteth a stout Turk, about the calling or degree of a justice of the peace, who is called a Kia, notwithstanding the gates are fast shut, for there passeth none in or out at their own pleasures. Being entered within the first gate, there was placed right against the gate 5 great pieces of brass, with Christian arms upon them. Then we passed through very delightful walks and gardens. The walks are, as it were, hedged in with stately cypress trees, planted with an equal distance one from the other, betwixt them and behind them smaller trees that bear the excellent fruit. I think there is none wanting that is good. The gardens I will omit to write of at this time. The way from the first gate to the second wall is something rising up a hill, betwixt walls about a quarter of a mile and better. The gate of the second wall was also shut, but when we came to the gate, my interpreter called to those that kept it within. Though they had knowledge of our coming, yet would they not open the gates until we had called and told them our business. These gates are made all of massive iron. 2 men whom they do call gemoglanes did open them. Within the first walls are no houses but one, and that is the Bostan Pasha his house, who is captain of 1,000 gemoglanes, who do nothing but keep the gardens in good order, and I am persuaded that there is none so well kept in the world. Within the second walls there is no gardens, but stately buildings, many courts paved with marble and such like stone. Every ode compartment or by corner hath some excellent fruit tree, or trees growing in them. Also there is great abundance of sweet grapes, and of diverse sorts. There a man may gather grapes every day in the year. In November, as I sat at dinner, I see them gather grapes upon the vines, and they brought them to me to eat. For the space of a month I dined every day in the Seraglio, and we had every day grapes after our meat. But most certain it is that grapes do grow there continually. Coming into the house where I was appointed to set up the present or instrument, it seemed to be rather a church than a dwelling house. To say the truth, it was no dwelling house, but a house of pleasure, and likewise a house of slaughter, for in that house was built one little house, very curious both within and without, for carving, gilding, good colors and varnish I have not seen the like. In this little house that emperor that reigned when I was there had 19 brothers put to death in it, and it was built for no other use but for the strangling of every emperor's brethren. This great house itself hath in it 2 ranks of marble pillars. The pedestals of them are made of brass and double gilt. The walls on 3 sides of the house are walled but halfway to the eaves. The other half is open. But if any storm or great wind should happen, they can suddenly let fall such hangings made of cotton wool for that purpose as will keep out all kinds of weather, and suddenly they can open them again. The 4th side of the house, which is close and joineth unto another house, the wall is made of porphyry, or such kind of stone as when a man walketh by it, he may see himself therein. Upon the ground, not only in this house, but all other that I see in the Seraglio, we tread upon rich silk carpets, one of them as much as 4 or 6 men can carry. There were in this house neither stools, tables, or forms, only one couch of estate. There is one side of it a fish pond that is full of fish that be of diverse colors. The same day our ambassador sent Mr. Paul Pinder, who was then his secretary, with a present to the Sultana, she being at her garden. The present was a coach of 600 pounds value. At that time the Sultana did take great liking to Mr. Pinder, and afterwards she sent for him to have his private company, but their meeting was crossed. The 15th I finished my work in the Seraglio, and I went once every day to see it, and dined there almost every day for the space of a month, which no Christian ever did in their memory that went away a Christian. The 18th day, staying something long before I went, the Kapajee, who is the Grand Signior's secretary, sent for me that one of his friends might hear the instrument. Before I went away, 2 Ajemoglans, who is keepers of that house, took me in their arms and kissed me, and used many persuasions to have me stay with the Grand Signior and serve him. The 21st at night, it was a wonder to see what abundance of lamps there was burning round about all the towers of the churches, both in Constantinople and Galata. When we demanded the cause, they told us that as that night Mohammed, their Messiah, was born, the feast of Bairam. The 24th at night our ambassador called me into his chamber and gave me a great charge to go the next morning betimes to the Seraglio and make the instrument as perfect as possibly I could, for that day before noon the Grand Signior would see it, and he was to deliver his embassage to the Grand Signior. After he had given me that charge, he told me that he had but done his duty in telling me of my duty, and quoth he, "Because you shall not take this unkindly, I will tell you all, and what you shall trust unto." The ambassador's speech unto me in love, after he had given me my charge: "You are come hither with a present from our gracious Queen, not to an ordinary prince or king, but to a mighty monarch of the world. But better had it been for you if it had been sent to any Christian prince, for then you should have been sure to have received for your pains a great reward. But you must consider what he is unto whom you have brought this rich present, a monarch, but an infidel, and the grand enemy to all Christians. What we or any other Christians can bring unto him, he doth think that we do it in duty or in fear of him, or in hope of some great favor we expect at his hands. It was never known that upon receiving of any present he gave any reward unto any Christian, and therefore you must look for nothing at his hands. You would think that for your long and wearisome voyage, with danger of life, that you were worthy to have a little sight of him, but that you must not look for neither, for you see what great preparing we made and have been about ever since your coming, for the credit of our country, and for delivering of this present and my embassage, the which by God's help tomorrow must be performed. We call it kissing the Grand Signior's hand, but when I come to his gates I shall be taken off my horse and searched, and led betwixt 2 men holding my hands down close to my sides, and so led into the presence of the Grand Signior, and I must kiss his knee or his hanging sleeve. Having delivered my letters to the Kapajee, I shall be presently led away, going backwards as long as I can see him, and in pain of my head I must not turn my back upon him, and therefore you must not look to have a sight of him. I thought good to tell you this, because you shall not hereafter blame me, or say that I might have told you so much. Let not your work be anything the more carelessly looked unto, and at your coming home our merchant shall give you thanks, if it give the Grand Signior content this one day. I care not if it be none after the next. If it do not please him at first sight, and perform not those things which it is told him that it can do, he will cause it to be pulled down, that he may trample it under his feet, and then shall we have no suit granted, but all our charge will be lost. After I had given my lord thanks for this friendly speech, though small comfort in it, I told him that this much I understood by our merchants before my coming out of London, and that he needed not to doubt that there should be any fault either in me or my work, for he had seen the trial of my care and skill in making that perfect and good which was thought to be uncurable, and in some things better than it was when Her Majesty saw it in the banqueting house at Whitehall. End of section 10. Section 11 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signior, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. The next morning, being the 25th, I went to the Seraglio, and with me my mate Harvey, who was the engineer, Master Rowland Bucket, the painter, and Michael Watson, the joiner. About an hour or two after, my lord, Ambassador Henry Lalo, was ready, and set forward towards the Seraglio. He did ride like unto a king, only that he wanted a crown. There rode with him 22 gentlemen and merchants, all in cloth of gold. The gentlemen were these: Master Humphrey Conisby, Master Bailey of Salisbury, Master Paul Pinder, Master William Aldridge, Master Jonas Aldridge, and Master Thomas Glover. The other 6 were merchants. These did ride in vests of cloth of gold, made after the country fashion. There went on foot 28 more in blue gowns made after the Turkish fashion, and every man a silk grosgrain cap after the Italian fashion. My livery was a fair cloak of French green, etc. Now when I had set all my work in good order, the Gemoglanes which kept that house espied the Grand Signior coming upon the water in his golden caique, or boat, for he came that morning 6 miles by water. Where I stood I saw when he set foot on the shore. Then the Gemoglanes told me that I must avoid the house, for the Grand Signior would be there presently. It was almost half a mile betwixt the water and that house, but the Grand Signior, having a desire to see his present, came thither with marvellous great speed. I and my company that was with me being put forth, and the door locked after us, I heard another door open, and upon a sudden a wonderful noise of people. For a little space it would seem that at the Grand Signior's coming into the house, the door which I heard open did set at liberty 400 persons, which were locked up all the time of the Grand Signior's absence. And just at his coming in they were set at liberty, and at the first sight of the present, with great admiration did make a wondering noise. The Grand Signior, being seated in his chair of state, commanded silence. All being quiet, and no noise at all, the present began to salute the Grand Signior, for when I left it I did allow a quarter of an hour for his coming thither. First the clock struck 22, then the chime of 16 bells went off and played a song of 4 parts. That being done, 2 personages, which stood upon two corners of the second story, holding two silver trumpets in their hands, did lift them to their heads, and sounded a tantara. Then the music went off, and the organ played a song of 5 parts twice over. In the top of the organ, being 16 feet high, did stand a holly bush full of blackbirds and thrushes, which at the end of the music did sing and shake their wings. Diverse other motions there was which the Grand Signior wondered at. Then the Grand Signior asked the Coppagee if it would ever do the like again. He answered that it would do the like again at the next hour. Quoth he, I will see that. In the meantime the Coppagee, being a wise man, and doubted whether I had so appointed it or no, for he knew that it would go of itself but 4 times in 24 hours. So he came unto me, for I did stand under the house side where I might hear the organ go, and he asked me if it would go again at the end of the next hour. But I told him that it would not, for I did think the Grand Signior would not have stayed so long by it, but if it would please him, that when the clock had struck he would touch a little pin with his finger, which before I had showed him, it would go at any time. Then he said that he would be as good as his word to the Grand Signior. When the clock began to strike again, the Coppagee went and stood by it, and when the clock had struck 23 he touched that pin, and it did the like as it did before. Then the Grand Signior said it was good. He sat very near unto it, right before the keys, where a man should play on it by hand. He asked why those keys did move when the organ went, and nothing did touch them. He told him that by those things it might be played on at any time. Then the Grand Signior asked him if he did know any man that could play on it. He said no, but he that came with it could, and he is here without the door. Fetch him hither, quoth the Grand Signior, and let me see how he doeth it. Then the Coppagee opened that door which I went out at, for I stood near unto it. He came and took me by the hand, smiling upon me, but I bid my dragoman (interpreter) ask him what I should do, or whither I should go. He answered that it was the Grand Signior's pleasure that I should let him see me play on the organ. So I went with him. When I came within the door, that which I did see was very wonderful unto me. I came in directly upon the Grand Signior's right hand, some 16 of my paces from him, but he would not turn his head to look upon me. He sat in great state, yet the sight of him was nothing in comparison of the train that stood behind him, the sight whereof did make me almost think that I was in another world. The Grand Signior sat still, beholding the present which was before him, and I stood dazzling my eyes with looking upon his people that stood behind him, the which was 400 persons in number. 200 of them were his principal pages, the youngest of them 16 years of age, some 20 and some 30. They were apparelled in rich cloth of gold, made in gowns to the mid leg, upon their heads little caps of cloth of gold, and some cloth of tissue, that is variegated, great pieces of silk about their waists instead of girdles, upon their legs cordovan buskins, red. Their heads were all shaven, saving that behind their ears did hang a lock of hair like a squirrel's tail, their beards shaven, all saving their upper lips. Those 200 were all very proper men, and Christians born. The 300 were dumb men, that could neither hear nor speak, and they were likewise in gowns of rich cloth of gold and cordovan buskins, but their caps were of violet velvet, the crown of them made like a leather bottle, the brims divided into 5 peaked corners. Some of them had hawks in their fists. The 400 were all dwarfs, big-bodied men, but very low of stature. Every dwarf did wear a scimitar by his side, and they were also apparelled in gowns of cloth of gold. I did most of all wonder at those dumb men, for they let me understand by their perfect signs all things that they had seen the present do by its motions. When I had stood almost 1/4 of an hour beholding this wonderful sight, I heard the Grand Signior speak unto the Coppagee, who stood near unto him. Then the Coppagee came unto me, and took my cloak from about me, and lay it down upon the carpets, and bid me go and play on the organ. But I refused to do so, because the Grand Signior sat so near the place where I should play that I could not come at it, but I must needs turn my back towards him and touch his knee with my breeches, which no man in pain of death might do, saving only the Coppagee. So he smiled and let me stand a little. Then the Grand Signior spoke again, and the Coppagee with a merry countenance bid me go with a good courage, and thrust me on. When I came very near the Grand Signior, I bowed my head as low as my knee, not moving my cap, and turned my back right towards him, and touched his knee with my breeches. He sat in a very rich chair of state, upon his thumb a ring with a diamond in it 1/2 inch square, a fair scimitar by his side, a bow, and a quiver of arrows. He sat so right behind me that he could not see what I did. Therefore he stood up, and his Coppagee removed his chair to one side where he might see my hands. But in his rising from his chair he gave me a thrust forwards, which he could not otherwise do, he sat so near me. But I thought he had been drawing his sword to cut off my head. I stood there playing such things as I could until the clock struck, and then I bowed my head as low as I could, and went from him with my back towards him. As I was taking of my cloak, the Coppagee came unto me and bid me stand still and let my cloak lie. When I had stood a little while, the Coppagee bid me go and cover the keys of the organ. Then I went close to the Grand Signior again and bowed myself, and then I went backwards to my cloak. When the company saw me do so, they seemed to be glad and laughed. Then I saw the Grand Signior put his hand behind him full of gold, which the Coppagee received, and brought unto me 45 pieces of gold called sequins, and then was I put out again where I came in, being not a little joyful of my good success. Being gotten out of the seraglio, I made all the speed I could to that gate where the ambassador went in, for he and all his company stood all these 2 hours expecting the Grand Signior's coming to another place where he should deliver his embassage and letters. When I came to that great gate, I saw our ambassador taking horse to be gone. As I was making haste towards him, he saw me and came to me, asking me if the Grand Signior had seen the present. I told him yes, and that I had seen the Grand Signior, and that I had gold out of his pocket. whereat he seemed to be very glad. As he was speaking unto me, there came 2 brave Turkes riding to my lord, bidding him take his place and stay a little. Then my lord bid me take my place a while, for he desired to hear more of that good newes. So when every man had taken his place, there was a great gate opened on one side of the court, and suddenly there came out at that gate 500 men on horseback, whose habits were strange to us, and their horses were very good. Likewise there came 500 Janissaries on foot, every man having in his hand a great cane like unto a beetle's staffe, and they were also in a strange habit. This 1000 men did only cross the court for a show. They being gone, there came 6 brave Turkes, well mounted, to our ambassador, and conducted him to the water side. When my lord was come to his own house, he with the 12 gentlemen entered into his chamber, and then he sent for me to tell him in what manner the Grand Signior had seen the present, and how I came to see him. When I had told them the discourse of it, they were all very glad that he did so well like the present, but my lord sat still a good while and said nothing until one asked him what he did study, on seeing all things proved so well. My lord answered him that he was sorry for one thing, the which was that he never had any thought of my coming into the Grand Signior's presence, neither that any other would make it doubtful unto him, for if he had but mistrusted it never so little, he would have bestowed 30 or 40 lire in apparel for me. End of section 11. Section 12 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signior, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. The last of September I was sent for again to the Seraglio to set some things in good order again which they had altered, and those 2 Ajemoglanes which kept that house made me very kindly welcome, and asked me that I would be contented to stay with them always, and I should not want anything, but have all the content that I should desire. I answered them that I had a wife and children in England who did expect my return. Then they asked me how long I had been married and how many children I had. Though indeed I had neither wife nor children, yet to excuse myself I made them that answer. Then they told me that if I would stay, the Grand Signior would give me 2 wives, either 2 of his concubines, or else 2 virgins of the best I could choose myself, in city or country. The same night as my lord was at supper, I told him what talk we had in the Seraglio, and what they did offer me to stay there, and he bid me that by no means I should flatly deny them anything, but be as merry with them as I could, and tell them that if it did please my lord that I should stay, I should be the better contented to stay. By that means they will not go about to stay you by force, and you may find a time the better to go away when you please. October. The 2nd of October my Lord Ambassador held a feast aboard our ship, and invited the Baillie of Venice and certain Turkes. The 12th, being Friday, I was sent for to the court, and also the Sunday and Monday following, to no other end but to show me the Grand Signior's privy chambers, his gold and silver, his chairs of state, and he that showed me them would have me sit down in one of them, and then to draw that sword out of the sheath with the which the Grand Signior doth crown his king. When he had showed me many other things which I wondered at, then crossing through a little square court paved with marble, he pointed me to go to a grate in a wall, but made me a sign that he might not go thither himself. When I came to the grate, the wall was very thick, and grated on both the sides with iron very strongly, but through that grate I did see 30 of the Grand Signior's concubines that were playing with a ball in another court. At the first sight of them I thought they had been young men, but when I saw the hair of their heads hang down on their backs, plaited together with a tassel of small pearl hanging in the lower end of it, and by other plain tokens, I did know them to be women, and very pretty ones indeed. They wore upon their heads nothing but a little cap of cloth of gold, which did but cover the crown of their head, no bands about their necks, or anything but fair chains of pearl and a jewel hanging on their breast, and jewels in their ears. Their coats were like a soldier's mandillion, some of red satin, and some of blue, and some of other colors, and gridded like a lace of contrary color. They wore breeches of scamante, a fine cloth made of cotton wool as white as snow and as fine as lawn, for I could discern the skin of their thighs through it. These breeches came down to their mid leg. Some of them did wear fine cordovan buskins, and some had their legs naked, with a gold ring on the small of her leg, on her foot a velvet pantoffle 4 or 5 inches high. I stood so long looking upon them that he which had showed me all this kindness began to be very angry with me. He made a wry mouth, and stamped with his foot to make me give over looking, the which I was very loath to do, for that sight did please me wondrous well. Then I went away with this Agemoglan to the place where we left my dragoman or interpreter, and I told my interpreter that I had seen 30 of the Grand Signior's concubines. But my interpreter advised me that by no means I should speak of it, whereby any Turk might hear of it, for if it were known to some Turks, it would present death to him that showed me them. He durst not look upon them himself. Although I looked so long upon them, they saw me not, neither all that while looked toward that place. If they had seen me, they would all have come presently thither to look upon me, and wondered as much at me, or how I came thither, as I did to see them. The next day, our ship, called the Hector, being ready to depart, I went to carry my bed and my chest aboard the ship. Whilst I was aboard the ship, there came a Agemoglan or a messenger from the Seraglio to my Lord Ambassador, with an express command that the ship should not depart, but must stay the Grand Signior's pleasure. When my lord heard this message, with such a command, he began to wonder what the cause could be. He thought that there had been some forfeit made, or that some of the ship's company had done hurt or given some great offense unto some great person. But whatever soever it was, he knew that the Grand Signior's command must be obeyed. Therefore, when he had studied long what the cause might be, and being very desirous to know the truth, he went to the messenger and desired him to tell him the cause why the Grand Signior had sent this command, or wherefore it should be. The The messenger told him that he did not know the cause why, neither wherefore, but he did hear the Kia say that if the workmen that set up the present in the seraglio would not be persuaded to stay behind the ship must stay until he had removed the present unto another place. When my lord had got thus much out of him, he began to be somewhat merry, for he was much grieved before, thinking it had been a greater matter, for the merchants was bound in £500 unto the owners of the ship that she should depart that day, which was the Thursday following, if wind and weather served. Also for the time that she stayed there, her charges was every day 20 lire. Then my lord inquired for me, and sent one to the ship where I was, who told me that I must come presently to my lord. So when I came to my lord, I found with him another messenger, who brought the certainty of the matter, that it was for no other cause but for my staying to remove the organ. But when my lord told me that I must be contented to stay and let the ship go, then was I in a wonderful perplexity, and in my fury I told my lord that that was now come to pass which I ever feared, and that was that he in the end would betray me and turn me over into the Turk's hands, where I should live a slavish life and never company again with Christians, with many other such like words. My lord very patiently gave me leave to speak my mind. Then he lay his hand on my shoulder and told that he was a Christian himself and hoped thereby to be saved. It was no plot of his, neither did he know of any such matter as this till the messenger came. In the end, quoth he, be you contented to stay and let the ship go, and it shall cost me £500 rather than you shall be compelled to stay a day longer than you are willing yourself, after you have removed the present, and you shall stay here as long as you will, and go as soon as you will, or when you will make choice of your company, and you shall want nothing, silver or gold, to carry you by sea or land, and go much safer and more for your pleasure 10 times than you could go with the ship. For the ship goeth to Scanderoon, in the bottom of the straits, which is out of her way homewards, and there will stay a month at least to take in her loading, and the place is so corrupt and unhealthful that many of her men will there grow sick and die, and you shall by this means be out of that danger. My lord did speak this so friendly and nobly unto me, that upon a sudden he had altered my mind, and I told him that I would yield myself into God's hand and his. Then said my lord, I thank you, I will send to the ship for such things as you desire to have left behind, for you must go presently to the seraglio to see the place where you must set up the present, or else they think that you mean not to come at all. So away went I with my dragoman, or interpreter, my old way to the seraglio gates, the which they willingly opened and bid me welcome when I came to that house where the present did stand. Those gemoglanes, my old acquaintance, which kept that house, and had been appointed by the Grand Signieur to persuade me to stay there always, as indeed they had done divers times and divers ways, now they thought that I would stay indeed. They embraced me very kindly and kissed me many times. What my dragoman said to them I know not, but I think he told them that I would not stay. Therefore when I was gone out of the house, down some 4 or 5 steps into a court, as I was putting on my pantofles, one of these Agemoglanes came behind me and took me in his arms and carried me up again into the house and set me down at that door where all the Grand Signior's brothers were strangled that day he was made emperor. My interpreter followed apace. When he that carried me had set me down, I bid my dragoman ask him why he did so, and he, seeing me look merrily, he himself laughed heartily, and said that he did so but to see how I would take it if they should stay me by force. Then I bid my dragoman tell him that they should not need to go about to stay me by force, for I did stay willingly to do the Grand Signior all the service that I could. Then these 2 Agemoglanes went with me to show me the house where unto the present should be removed. The way was very pleasant through the gardens, where did grow store of cypress trees and many other good fruit trees in very comely and decent order. Being past the gardens, we entered upon a fair green, where we found some gallant Turks riding horses on the east side of that green, or plain upon the wall of the Seraglio. Close to the seaside doth stand a pretty fine little building, which they call a kiosk, made for a banqueting house, but especially, as I perceived, it is a place where the Grand Signior doth use to meet his concubines twice in the week. It is finely covered with lead, and builded square on the top, in the middle a little square tower like a pyramid on a great height, and on top of that a little turret well gilded, and on the side next to the sea a fair large gallery where men may stand and see both up and down the river of Hellespont, and likewise over it into Asia. On the other 3 sides toward the green are very large penthouses supported with fine marble pillars, the floor spread with fair carpets, the roof under the penthouses very curiously wrought with gold and colors, but coming into it, it is a little wonder. I cannot duly describe it, but the roof is a round hollow very curiously. A page of the manuscript is lost here. Pipes, and laid them in order on the carpets. By chance I called to my dragoman and asked him the cause of their running away. Then he said, the Grand Signior and his concubines were coming, we must be gone in pain of death, but they run all away and left me behind, and before I got out of the house they were run over the green quite out at the gate, and I run as fast as my legs could carry me after, and 4 negroes or blackamoors came running towards me with their scimitars drawn. If they could have catched me they would have hewed me all in pieces with their scimitars. When I came to the wicket or gate, there stood a great number of Agemoglanes, praying that I might escape the hands of those running wolves. When I was got out of the gate, they were very joyful that I had so well escaped their hands. I stayed not there, but took boat and went presently to my lord, and told him how I had run for my life. As soon as my dragoman came home, my lord made him believe that he would hang him for leaving me in that danger, but at last granted him his life, but forbid him to come to his house any more. He was a Turk, but a Cornish man born. Now, as I was running for my life, I did see a little of a brave show, which was the Grand Signior himself on horseback, many of his concubines, some riding and some on foot, and brave fellows in their kind that were gelded men and keepers of the concubines, negroes that were as black as jet, but very brave, by their sides great scimitars, the scabbards seemed to be all gold, etc. The 21st my Lord would not suffer me to go to work, because it was our Sabbath day. And that did lose me something, for that day the Grand Signior had appointed to come and sit by me to see how I put my work together, and was come upon the green, which when the Ajemoglanes perceived, they run to meet him, and told him that I came not to work that day. Then he returned again, and thought that I had kept myself away of purpose, and therefore he would not come any more. The 24th my work was finished. End of section 12. Section 13 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signior, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. The 25th I went to that place again with the Coppagee, to show him some things in the present, and to see that I had left nothing amiss. And then those Ajemoglanes were very earnest with me in persuasion to stay and live there. The last of October my Lord Ambassador went to the Vizier's house with all his train of Englishmen. For that day the Vizier had appointed to end a controversy which was betwixt him and the French Ambassador, but the French Ambassador, seeing us go by his house with a greater company than he could make, he would not come after us, the which was little for his credit. The two ambassadors made suit both for one thing, and the Vizier received great bribes of the French Ambassador. November. The 12th of November I went to Adrianople Gate, that is the furthest gate of Constantinople, towards Adrianople. Upon a goodly plain without that gate I see a caravan of the tallest camels that ever I had seen in all my time. Then we returned into the city to see divers monuments, the which I would not for anything but that I had seen them. I have not time now to write them, but of force must leave them unnamed until a time of better leisure. This day in the morning I put on a pair of new shoes and wore them quite out before night. But this day I took a great cold with a surfeit, by means whereof I was sore troubled with a burning fever, and in great danger of my life. When I was something recovered, by the help of God and a good physician, it happened that there was good company ready to come for England, such as in 2 or 3 years I could not have had the like if I had stayed behind them, and they were all desirous to have my company. My Lord was very unwilling that I should go at that time, because I was very weak, not able to go on foot 1 mile in a day. But I desired my Lord to give me leave, for I had rather die by the way in doing my good will to go home, than stay to die there, where I was persuaded I could not live if I did stay behind them. Of our passage by sea to Volos in Romalia. My Lord Ambassador would have me to carry my bed with me, and gave order for the carrying of it on shipboard, and also that when we came to travel by land, that I should have 1 horse to carry me, and another to carry my bed and my clothes. The 28th of November, being Wednesday, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we departed from the city of Constantinople and Galata in a Turkish ship called Carmesel, in the which we had a discontented voyage, the master and sailor were so barbarous. The next day we came to the two castles called Sestos and Abydos, where some of our company went ashore and took in as good wine as the world yieldeth, but it was but for their own provision. December. The 1st of December we departed from thence, and after 7 miles we came to the ruins of Troy, and sailed behind Tenedos, leaving it on our left hand. The wind being too large for our weak ship, we came to an anchor at the island Lemnos the same day. At this place we were in great danger of being cast away. The 6th day we set sail again, having a fair wind, but towards night we were becalmed. The 7th day, the wind being contrary, we came to an anchor by the shore of Romalia, the main land of Greece. The 8th day, the wind coming fair, we set sail and entered the river. The next morning, being Sunday, we arrived at Volos in Romalia, the main of Greece, not far from Thessalonica. The 10th we took horses and began our journey by land over the confines of Thessaly. The 12th day at night we came to a town called Zetoun, Lamia. Being come to this town, our horses and mules returned to Volos, and here we rested 2 days. I may say rested, for I am sure we had no rest in the night. Our lodging was so bad, beside the great fear we were in of having our throats cut. The best commodity we had was that we had good store of good wine and good sheep. Here we hired fresh horses and mules. We were but 8 men, yet we had every day 12 horses. 4 of them were to carry our clothes, my bed, and wine and victuals for 3 days. For some nights we were like to lie outdoors, and at some towns we could not get any victuals. While we were in this town we were warned to keep close, for there were some of the Grand Signior's soldiers that were coming from the wars. The 14th we departed from Zetoun, and having ridden 6 or 7 miles, we began to climb the hills of Parnassus, where we had all manner of ill weather, as thundering, lightning, rain, and snow, and our way was so bad as I think never did Christians travel the like. The mountains were huge and steep, stony, and the ways very narrow, so that if a horse should have stumbled or slided, both the horse and man had been in great danger of their lives. Also we were dogged or followed by 4 stout villains that were Turks. They would have persuaded our dragoman, which was our guide, to have given his consent unto the cutting of our throats in the night, and he did very wisely conceal it from us, and delayed the time with them, not daring to deny their suit. And so they followed us 4 days over Parnassus. But our dragoman every night gave us charge to keep good watch, especially this last night, for they did propose to go no further after us, and our Turk, whom I call our dragoman, had permitted them that night it should be done. Now, after he had given us warning to keep good watch, he went unto them, and made them drink so much wine, or put something in their wine, that they were not only drunk but also sick, that they were not able to attempt anything against us to hurt us, for the which we had very great cause to give hearty thanks unto Almighty God, who was our chiefest safeguard. This night we lay in a little village under a wonderful high rock. Though that country be continually cold, yet the women there never wear anything on their feet. They are very well favored, but their feet be black and broad. This man that was sent with us to be our dragoman, or interpreter, was an Englishman, born in Chorley, Lancashire, his name Finch. He was also in religion a perfect Turk, but he was our trusty friend. The next day, being the 17th, we came to Lepanta, Nafpoktos, where our Turk revealed all this unto us, and these men we had seen, but never more than one at once, and he never stayed long in our company, for he came but to speak with our Turk about their villainous plot. This day we had both winter and summer. In the morning we did tread upon frost and snow. Before noon we came to the bottom of the mountain, wherein did run a river so big and stiffly, being full of stones, so that we durst not adventure to ride over it. But our Turk, riding up and down by the river side, espied two stout fellows, the which were naked and more than half savage or wild. He called them unto him, and they unwillingly came. Then, when he had talked with them, he commanded one of them to take his horse by the bridle and lead him through the river, and so he did, having a great staff in his hand. Then the other savage man took Master Paul Pinder's horse by the head and led him over, and then Sir Humphrey Conisby his horse, and so one after another. The river was thick and muddy, and was no other than merely snow water that doth descend from those hills where it doth continually snow. Long before night we came to Lepanta, Nefpaktos, which is a great haven town. The people in it are Turks, Greeks, and Jews, but the greatest part be Jews, the second Turks. This Lepanta is a good haven town, lieth close to the sea, in the rising of a hill, and upon that hill is a castle, the which hath 2 counter walls, etc. In diverse parts of this town are very fine springs of excellent water, and some of them do drive mills, the which mills be very strangely made, for only one water wheel, without any cog wheel or anything else, doth turn the stone, and will grind 30 bushels a day and upwards. To make the like I am able to give direction. About this town they make great store of very pleasant wines, both white and red. Also here doth grow good store of currant, great plenty of oranges and lemons, palms, citrons, pomegranates, dates, and almonds, and very good oil. We lodged here 3 nights in the house of a Jew, who is by Englishmen called the honest Jew, for he is very loving unto Englishmen. The 20th day we took a boat and crossed the Gulf of Lepanta, the Gulf of Corinth, and the same night came to Patras in Morea. All our way thither we were in good hope to have had great entertainment there by Mr. Jonas Aldridge, an Englishman who was consul there, but he was gone 40 miles from home to hang a Jew. By missing of him we were constrained to lodge at a Romaic's house, a Greek's house, in such manner as we did all our journey. For though we had house room enough, yet we lay in our clothes upon the ground, saving at the Jew's house in Lepanta there were 2 bedsteads, English fashion, but those would not serve us all. At this place Master Conisby was like to have cut off a Jew's head who railed against our Saviour, but Master Paul Pinder and the rest of our company, with much ado, prevented it. This Patras is in Morea, either adjoining or a part of Greece. Here is a good port for ships, but the town is near half a mile from the sea, in the rising of a hill. A little above the town is a castle, but the town and castle are but of small strength. Here is indifferent store of currant and oil, and great store of corn, for they do sell some to other countries that want. Also good store of goats and sheep and other cattle. Because some of our company was sick, we rested here 3 days. The 24th, being Christmas Eve, we proceeded in our journey through Morea. About noon we came to a river that we must pass through, and determining there to wait, for we ever had victuals ready dressed for 3 days, we pitched and placed ourselves under the alder trees to keep us from the sun, for though it was Christmas Eve, yet we thought it to be as hot weather as we have it in England at Whitsuntide, and swallows came flying about us. Our dinner ended, we crossed the river and entered into a forest-like country, where we saw neither town nor village, but sometime a shepherd's hut. At night we found 3 little poor cottages. In this wild country, where we rested the most part of the night, and while 4 of us slept, the other 4 did watch, for we took the place to be dangerous to sleep it. I was one of the 4 that did watch in the forepart of the night. Betwixt 11 and 12 of the clock we saw a ball of fire as big as a great football rising out of the east, and did rise of a great height, and did give a great light. Then falling towards the west, the light and fire both was less and less. Master Conisby was very sorry that he had not seen that fireball. At 4 o'clock in the morning, being Christmas Day, we set forwards. This day we could not number the herds of swine which we saw and passed through, and also herds of sheep and goats, and we were very much troubled with shepherds' dogs, the which were like to pluck us off our horses. This country is a part of the plains of Arcadia, the Peloponnese. About an hour we came to a village where we did think to have bought some victuals, but we could get nothing but 8 eggs. When we were a mile out of this town upon the plains, the day before was very fair, but now there fell a sudden shower of rain, the which came down as if it had been powered down with bowls, and no wind, but our horses stood stone still and would not stir 1 foot. The shower lasted not above half a quarter of an hour, and for a great part of that time, for a mile round about us, we could see no ground for water. Upon a sudden it ceased, and the water was gone, all saving some which lay in hollow places. Passing through this plain, upon our right hand we might see the sea, and upon the sands an infinite company of wild swans. Upon our left hand we saw high mountains. At night we came to a castle called Castle Tornese, the which doth stand upon a very high hill, possessed with a garrison of Turks, and is 3 miles from the sea. It is a castle that may be kept with a very few men. The way to it is so laid ugly that ordnance cannot be brought anything near it. On St. Stephen's Day we did think to have crossed a part of the sea to the island Zante, but the wind was so high that we could not. On St. John's Day, the wind being somewhat abated, we carried our supports, provisions, and other luggage to the seaside, where we were in hope to find some boats. Coming thither, we found a great market of swine and other cattle, and so there is every day being fair weather. The island Zante hath all their provision of victuals from thence. From this place it is but 12 or 18 miles by sea, yet we had much ado to hire a huge boat to carry us to Zante. For our passage and carriage of our stuff we paid 7 sequins, or 7 pieces of gold, which were 9 shillings a piece. Here at the seaside we parted from our dragoman, or the Turk that was our guide from Constantinople. Though he was a Turk, his right name was Finch, born at Chorley in Lancashire. End of section 13. Section 14 of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signieur, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Sue Anderson. Our entertainment at Zante. Being come to Zante, we could not be permitted to go ashore, because the governors of the town did understand that we came from Constantinople, or out of Turkey. It is their custom to deal so with all strangers that come out of Turkey, if they have not a letter of health from some Venetian or Italian. So by the judgment of the provedor and the 2 signors of health, we were committed to the lazaretto, which is a prison for all such travelers, and there to remain for 10 days. And if at the end of 10 days any man be found sick when the signors of health come to examine and see them, then they must remain there for 10 days more. January. By such means as our merchants who are factors there did use, we had practique liberty the 6th of January. But at our first coming we were in doubt to have lain there longer in this prison. But we had a great favor showed us, for we were not put into the ordinary prison, but into a new house where never anybody had dwelt, and it was close to the sea. Also the watermen which brought us from Castle Tornese was committed with us, because they brought us in their boat, and we were constrained to find them victuals for 7 days. For then the signors of health came unto us to see if any man were sick. Master Paul Pinder desired that they would release the watermen and ease us of that charge. So they were contented that the watermen should have practique or liberty if they would leap out at a window into the sea and wash themselves overhead with their clothes on, the which they were very loath to do. But Master Conisby drew his scimitar and swore a great oath that if they would not leap out quickly he would cut off their legs, and made them perforce leap out, and so we were rid of them. Many things which happened in the time of our imprisonment for want of time I do omit. February. We stayed in the island of Zante 46 days, ever expecting some ship to come in there that would carry us to Venice or else for England. But the first that came was the Hector, in the which I went out of England, and we did think that she by that time had been in England. When I saw her I was somewhat sorry, for I had a great desire to have gone to Venice, but yet I was glad again, because I knew that in her was a sure passage, and amongst men that did know me. The 26th of February in the morning we departed from Zante. The next day we had ill weather, and the wind contrary, so that we returned again and went in at Argostoli in Morea (Cephalonia). In our company was the Edward Bonaventure and the Swallow. In that harbor we found the Great Susan of London, a ship of 300 ton, and there was the Royal Defence of Bristol. The last of this month came in there the Merchant Bonaventure. March 1599. The 1st of March came in a little ship called the Diamond. In this country is very good muscadine, and there is also some current. This harbor is very good. What weather soever blow, a ship is without danger there. On the west side doth stand a pretty town called Luxori, on the east a castle. When we went to sea from hence, we were in company 8 ships. Being 4 or 5 leagues at sea, the wind came contrary, and like to be foul weather, so that we returned again to the same harbor. In the morning the wind came fair again, and we set sail again. The 6th day we passed the Gulf of Venice, the which day the wind came all southwest, a small gale, so that we could not keep our course. But as we were turning in the night, the wind came fair at south and by east, and continued the next day. The 9th day we descried Mount Etna, but there it is called Montabel, the burning mountain in Sicily. In the afternoon we came under the shore of the same land. At the first we did think to come to an anchor, because the wind was bad. Yet turning up and down by the shore, we saw the watch towers make lights at the top of their towers, to show unto other watch towers how many ships they saw that were not their friends. For there be of those towers round about the island, so that if one tower do show so many lights, one after another as they see ships, it will go round about the island in a very short time. If we had come to an anchor, we feared them not, but they were afraid of us. Yet doubting the wind could be worse, or else no wind at all, we kept at sea. The next day we were so near the shore that we saw a great company of soldiers, both horse and foot, gathered together. For all that, towards 8 we came to an anchor near the shore. When the wind came fair, every ship set sail before our anchor was up and weighed. The other 7 ships being under sail, they gave chase to a Spanish ship which was going to Malta with wheat, and when she saw so many English ships under sail, she thought it better for her to go back again to Sicily than to keep her course. Our ship being the hindmost of all the 8, yet we outwent them all and took that prize. There was but 10 men in her. It was but a small bark. She was laden with wheat. When our sailors had pillaged her, our master gave the ship and wheat to Captain Cook, a man of war. We had out of her very fine white bread and good cheese. In the night following there rise a mighty storm, the wind at west, at which time we were 30 leagues from Cape Passero, southern Cape of Sicily, where we were last at anchor. This storm continued 48 hours, that we were not able to bear any sail. In this storm the prize which we had taken was cast away. The 13th day, being Wednesday, we were in sight of Cape Passero again, being driven back again 80 leagues, and there came to an anchor again, where we found a great Flemish ship. That night the watch towers made lights as they did before. The next morning we weighed anchor again, but we were driven further backwards. The second night after, we recovered that place again. This trouble we took to be a punishment for taking of that prize. The next day being Sunday, and the 16th day of March, it was very calm and extreme hot weather. At 8 o'clock at night we set sail, for the wind came fair at east, but a very small gale. The next day we were becalmed betwixt Malta and Sicily. The 19th we met with an English ship called the John and Francis, near the coast of Sicily, laden with Turks and Jews bound for Alexandria. The 21st, being Good Friday, the wind came fair, and brought us to the island of Pantelleria. One Easter day the wind was directly against us, and drive us back. The 25th, being Tuesday, we met with the Rebecca of London and the Green Dragon of Bristol. The 29th, the wind being fair, we passed by Cape Bon. 10 leagues from that we passed by a little island called Zembra, across from Carthage. A very high mountain also the same day, by Porto Farina, the western point of the Bay of Tunis. The first day of April we crossed the Gulf of Lions. Our victuals being very bad, I was invited to dinner with our merchants in the great cabin, and being at dinner we heard the cry of a mermaid, like as if one had hailed our ship, but our boatswain forbid any man to make answer or to look out. The second day the wind came fair. The third day, the wind being bad, we came to an anchor at Formentera, one of the Balearic Islands, where our boats went ashore for fresh water and stores, not inhabited but with banished men there. Near unto a watchtower we found a man lying dead without a head, for it had been cut off by some Turks, as we supposed. This island is very near a place or town in Spain called the Island of Iviza. Our ship did ride but a little from the town and castle, which castle is very strong. The 6th day, being Sunday, in the morning, as we were weighing anchor, there came a boat from that town, and brought our merchants for a present 2 goats, oranges, lemons, leeks, and onions, and green beans, lettuce, and other herbs. The 7th day we sailed by Las Calderonas and by Alicante, which is 100 leagues within the strait's mouth. There we met with 2 Flemish sail that came from Walloon. The 8th day we were becalmed before Alicante. The 9th day we passed by Cape Palos near Cartagena, in the night following by Cape de Gata, and in the morning we were becalmed before Almeria, a fair town in Spain, as it is said, not much inferior to London. We were in a manner becalmed all that day and the night following. This day we saw great store of the spawn of whales, whereof they make spermaceti. It did swim upon the water as the whale left it. Upon the water it showed red, but when we took up some of it in a bucket, it was white and like grease. Also this day, being a very small gale of wind, a great fish, called a shark, of a marvelous length, did follow our ship side by side, with his eyes above water, waiting for a prey. For if a man had come within his length of the water, he would hardly have escaped him. Our master gunner made ready his harpoon iron, and when the subtle fish see him ready to pitch it at him, he stalled and fell behind the ship, and came up on the other side, and served him so 2 or 3 times. But at last he hit him a little behind the head with a full blow. but his skin was so hard that the iron turned double and would not enter anything at all, only we might see a little white spot where it light. Neither did the fish make any show of feeling it, but turned him about and went away directly from the ship. The 11th day, the wind being much against us, as we were turning to get something of the wind, we came near unto the castle de Ferro in Spain, and very near unto the shore, we looking still when the castle would shout at us, but they would not. Then, being come less than a league from the shore, we had no wind at all, and so it continued all the next day. By this means our fleet were scattered one a league from another, so that if the Spanish galleys had come forth, they might have taken us one after another. That day it was strange to see how the porpoises did run in great fleets or shoals, in what manner it is credible to report, and the noise that they made. The 13th we met with a ship of Yarmouth. The 15th we came near to Gibraltar, where we met with 3 Englishmen or ships and 1 Flemish, which made our fleet 14 sail. But the wind was so contrary that we could not come near the gate of the strait's mouth, but lay becalmed unto Burgo, also to Marbella and Grand Malaga. The 16th we were becalmed. The next morning we saw 2 great whales, which were so huge that we thought them to be 2 galleys or frigates. It was an extreme hot day. The 17th at 10 o'clock the wind came fair at northeast, so that about 11 of the clock at night we entered into the narrow gate, which is 4 leagues in length. At the sun rising we passed by Cape Spartel near Tangiers, which is 10 leagues without the strait's mouth, at which time we had in our sight 21 sail of ships. The same day towards night, one ship in our company, called the Rebecca, the which at that time was the most speedy of sail, took her leave of us, with an intent to bring the first news into England of our safe coming homewards. The next morning, being the 19th, we descried Mount Guidos, a high land in Spain, 7 leagues from the South Cape, behind Algeciras. The 20th in the morning, being Sunday, very early, one in our main top saw a sail coming towards us directly, and when we might well discern the hull of her, we did know her to be the Rebecca, the same ship that took her leave of us 2 days before to carry news of our safe coming homewards. The cause of the return of that ship was for that 2 galleons of Spain did give chase unto her, yet nothing so good of sail as she, but the master of the Rebecca thought them to be Carricks coming from the Indies laden with great wealth, wherein he was much deceived, for they were 2 men of war that did lie in wait for our ship, as afterwards they confessed. When they were come near unto us, we did also think them to be but coming from the Indies. One of them was a ship of 1,200 ton, the other 800. Our master was very unwilling to fight with them, but our sailors was very desirous. So we presently went to prayers, and then our gunners made ready their ordnance, fights out, and every man his place appointed, and all things in readiness, we having the wind of the Spanish ships. Our ship, called the Hector, lay side by side to the great galleon, and another English ship, called the Great Susan, lay close by the other, ever expecting who would give the first shot. All the other ships that were before in our company were gone a league and more off from us, without danger of any shot. There was great odds betwixt our ship, that ship was called the Great Susan. Here some pages are missing from the manuscript. These pages doubtless relate the battle, which, as the sequel shows, was a victory for the English. Unto him, and desired him to give me and my mate Harvey leave to go ashore there, and we would take post horse and make what speed we could to London. So at last he granted me and 3 more leave to go, upon condition that we would take the Spanish captain with us, and bring him safe unto the merchants, the which we promised to do. Then we went ashore at Dover, and our trumpets sounding all the way before us into the town, where we made ourselves as merry as we could, being very glad that we were once again upon English ground. After dinner there came into the town a French ambassador, being accompanied with divers knights and gentlemen of Kent. So at 2 of the clock we took post horse to Canterbury, and from thence to Rochester that night, and the next day to London. End of section 14. End of Dallam's Travels with an Organ to the Grand Signior, 1599-1600, by Thomas Dallam.